One of the reasons that make me so optimistic about the future of the world is that I've discovered I belong to a generation of young people that have just said, it's a hard no from us, hey? We've said no more pain, no more trauma, no more complacency, no more bending over for this, no more yes, pass, please, master, none of that. We're done. We're absolutely done. There is a hunger to uncreate this world and to create a new one by force or by fire, because when in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for any one people to dissolve the political, economic, and epistemic bondage that connects you to another, when a long train of abuse is in use and with patience pursues, and invariably events are designed to reduce the people under absolute despotism, revolution not only becomes necessary, it becomes a duty. I'm going to say that again. Revolution not only becomes necessary, it becomes a duty. We are often described as a ticking time bomb. And so for those of you with ears, the ticking is getting louder, the roars are getting deeper, the gaze is getting sharper and our focus more intense. The world ignores us and preserves the status quo at its own risk. We, black women, ignore us at our own risk. And so what we are saying no more. We are done playing this game. We are playing different games now. We are deserving and worthy of better. We are deserving and worthy of a future brighter than the history of our ancestors. Our history will not be our future. So yes, this is the future. Now is the future. I am the future. We are all the future. And so, world, what I'm trying to tell you, actually, your time is up.
Well, after that, all one needs to say is, can I get an amen? My technical director, Zelma, has her hand up in the air and she's saying, amen. Wow, Ashanti Kunene. All we can say is yes, 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 indeed. Let it be, let it be. She's a South African poet, writer, and activist. 11 after 9 o'clock. A very good morning to all of you. Welcome to The Talking Point. If you've just tuned in to the station, you're listening to SAFM, where we lead conversations that move us. This is The Talking Point, and my name is Cathy Mohlahlana, and I'll be with you until midday, taking over from my colleague Tulasizwe Simlane on the morning brief. Okay, sure, what a week that we're in for, what a day we're in for. Today might unfortunately be a bit of a Blue Monday, only because of the weather. So coming to work this morning, Johannesburg is overcast, raining, thunder. That's just a bit of what I witnessed when I was on the road, approaching peak time traffic. So if you woke up 5 minutes later than you're supposed to, you're probably already dealing with the mess that may have come with that decision. But also let's listen to what the emergency services personnel are saying. We're in for inclement weather. Please be on the lookout. On the roads, let's drive carefully. Let's drive thoughtfully, mindfully. Let's pause our road rage, our anger, the bad behavior that we generally have. Let's pause that for when it's sunny. It's bad enough to deal with it when the weather is okay. When the weather is not okay, the risks are just so much higher. And of course, we're also still expecting the warnings around the snow. It's already started in some of the provinces that are closer to the ocean, and it's moving inward. So yeah, I see lots of people carrying extra jackets around, even though they're not wearing them, and they're just ready for what the end of the day might look like. The end of the day might be worse than how the day has started. So do not leave home judging what today's weather is going to be based on what you're seeing now. The situation might be very, very different in a couple of hours' time. So what a weekend it has been as well. One of the key sporting events or events on the sporting calendar, the Comrades Marathon, taking place yesterday. And really so amazing to see South Africans out there, not only South Africans, but so many other runners doing their thing, pushing themselves to the limit. Tulasizwe Simlane needs to tell us why people run the Comrades, right? Why? Why do you do that to yourself? It's so much better watching it from the couch than actually having to be there and seeing it. But, you can't help but go through the emotions with all of those runners. So congratulations to everybody that participated, those that managed to reach their targets, and, of course, the winners of that particular race. So coming up on the show, we'll start it off with the open line, as we always do. I'll be taking your calls on 086 000 2032 and on the WhatsApp line 0614 104 107. It's your national roundtable. Everybody has a seat and you're invited then to contribute to the national agenda. What you can expect coming up on the show today, in the second hour, we're going to be dealing with the issue of gender-based violence and femicide. And again, trying to unpack different aspects of the challenge that we are dealing with as a country, and also how should we be approaching this particular problem, given the fact that we seem to be in this cycle where these behaviors keep repeating themselves over and over and over again. So what is it really that we're not dealing with, that we're not addressing as a society to break the cycle of violence against women and children? And then in Nigeria, and I guess this is sort of linked to what we've seen parts of the world move into and probably what is unfolding in the U.S. right now. But the General Christopher Musa, who's the Chief of Defense Staff, has proposed a complete fencing of Nigeria's borders with its 4 neighbors. And this is to try and stop the influx of armed groups that are continually threatening the security of the country. And of course, it would also, be to try and protect the country. So we're going to be taking a look at that particular proposal. Is it just something that is being said? How seriously is this proposal by the general, and what would it effectively mean for the Sahel region and some of the national security measures that are unfolding there? You think about this call for a borderless Africa, right? Where some have suggested, you must just have one passport, visa-free system, and you get access everywhere onto the continent. You can go wherever you want and get there as quickly as possible. What happens to that, when countries are beginning to look at the reality, I think, of part of where not only migration, but some of the complexities around security has left many countries vulnerable to the point where they're thinking about erecting fences, erecting walls. That's effectively what it is, right? What kind of future does that potentially create for the continent? Is this idea of a borderless Africa, is that now just a pipe dream? Is it something that is relegated to the zone of history and the visionaries who pioneered it, those that were behind it and championed it, and imagined Africa differently to perhaps what the current leaders are dealing with? It's part of the conversation that we can have in the final hour of the show. So that's all coming up over the next 3 hours. I'm with you until midday. It is your open line. It's the National Roundtable. I'm taking your calls on 086 000 2032, on the WhatsApp voice note line 0614 104 107. And like I said, it is your National Roundtable.
We plan for vacations, retirement, and even tonight's dinner. But do we plan for our health? It's how we protect our family's future. So who are you staying healthy for? And how can you protect their future? Choose Dis-Chem Life, the life cover that helps you live a healthier, more rewarding life with health checks and extra rewards. Visit dischemlife.co.za now. Dis-Chem Life. Choose a better partner for life. Dis-Chem Life is an authorized FSP 50594, underwritten by Guard Risk Life, a licensed life insurer, FSP 76. T's and C's apply.
We all have an enemy.
Not me.
Oh, please. Trust me, you do. Some are vocal about it. I mean, they don't shy away from it. Open hatred. Well, at least they're honest about it. Then you get our Satan. Oh, they will hate you in the shadows. Consult the Magoya of Baloi. Maybe an Nkabi for you here and there. Trash your name until it can't even be recycled. Tune into My Secret Enemy and get a front row seat to some of the most spine-chilling stories in the Hall of Betrayal. My Secret Enemy, Mondays at 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
SAFM invites young people between the ages of 18 to 35 to take over the airwaves this Youth Month. All you have to do is send a WhatsApp voice note or text message to 061 410 4107 or email info@safm.co.za. Tell us which show you'd like to co-host and what youth-focused issues the G20 should incorporate ahead of the summit. And we could be calling you. Terms and conditions apply. The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
What percentage of these schools, these initiation schools, are effectively illegal or illegitimate and they needed to be shut down? What would you think?
My brother, you cannot have a percentage because some will be opening for the first time as we are going to the winter season. That is why we say a school that will not have been registered will not be allowed to operate.
The Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Velinkosi Tlabisa.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM. Find the podcast at safm.co.za.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
What a day out on the roads here. Again, I was just taken away by the amazing support from the crowds, the support that I received. It's something I can't explain in words. Today, my run was dedicated to all those who support me, my friends, my family, the volunteers, the supporters. I hope that with my God-given talent, I can inspire some young girls as well today to aspire to one day take on running, even if not to say that it needs to be professional, but just running as a sport, something that they can love.
I saw that it's under control because I think last 10 I saw he was closing the gap, and then I accelerated a little bit and opened a gap, and then I could see that last 2 kilo, no, he's still far. Yeah, it was under control. We came with the race plan, but it didn't work for my captain, but I was very light and I could feel that I could move, but my first 30 kilometers, it was a little bit harder. I didn't get enough rest yesterday. I think maybe it's anxiety or something.
All right, there we have it then. The winners from yesterday's Comrades Marathon, Dede Dijana and Gerda Steyn, there reflecting and talking about what that journey had entailed. We were going to bring you a very beautiful story of one of the runners. Unfortunately, we seem to be having issues just with our connectivity reaching them. So, but we're going to try and see if we can't bring you the story later on in the week. And just, again, it's inspirational. You know, sometimes it's good to start your week on a positive note, right? With the right kind of energy. And I wonder, what are the things that you are willing to put your body through? Zelma's shaking her head. No. What are the things that you're willing to put your body through, especially where sport is concerned? So what is it really that will get you to do the kind of things that the Comrades runners do? I know for me, for a long time, it was hiking, because I really enjoy it. And so the idea of going to Kilimanjaro was fun. Dreaming about going to Everest Base Camp started being something that I put there as, actually, maybe one day I could. That was before I had kids. But I don't know how I feel after having kids. But what are the things that you genuinely are willing to torture your body for? Any sport? What sport is it that you're willing to put your body through that test for? You can send me a WhatsApp voice note and respond to that. Let me go to our call lines. Mzi, you're in Cape Town. Good morning.
Cathy, thank you for taking my call, man. And we always call here to raise issues and sometimes celebrate what you call the Comrades winners and stuff like that. But it's sad, man, when in the Free State we allow something that is man-made, like what you call, I believe this is man-made in what sense? That we've got a deceased as a family that was shot on the 29th and we gave the government, which is the Pilinomi, the police, maybe we trusted them. We gave them a week, the whole of last week, to assist us with the body, with the body, so that we can be able to transport the body to the Eastern Cape. We trusted them that they will issue all the paperwork so that we can be able to claim for the so that we can be able to bury the people. But every time this is happening, that a black person in power always undermines a black person that is reliant on him, because we are reliant on a black person that has got an arrogant attitude, that we receive a body at least so that we can pass the pain of the of the loss of our loved ones. But we don't get assistance, man. I don't know I said, no, let me raise this with
and Mzi, just to understand the cause of death here, as far as you are able to tell, there's a reason why you're waiting for autopsy. But was it natural, or do you suspect it was unnatural?
No, it was unnatural when I say Cathy, because I'm willing to tell you the truth. The brother was shot, and all the police did their work. They took their case number. He died at the Pilinomi on the 29th, and we will give in the casualty. You understand? Now what happens is that my mom, went to the hospital just to plead them to understand the process, because we know nothing. This is the first time we've lost a family. You understand? So instead of the Pilinomi assisting, they keep on telling lies that they handed over the body to the government mortuary, only for me to ask somebody, a friend that perhaps knows better about these things. He went on the government mortuary, and they told him that the body was not there. And on Friday, it was on Friday when he went there, and he went to Pilinomi again. They told him that the body is still with them. So as a family man, my mom is a domestic worker. She asked for a leave last week. And now this week, she's in the risk of losing her job because she has to go to a doctor now and say she's sick or something like that. But emotionally, she's now sick, and everybody in the family, we are now sick because we have to tell lies to the bosses that are employing us, because we've got people in different provinces. I'm from Cape Town, for example. I need to go and bury my brother. The others are in the Mpumalanga, others are in Joburg. You understand? But we are pleading, and with we want to plead, and we don't know who to speak to. The black people that are in authority, they keep on hanging on us when we want the questions. When we are begging them for the body, we are begging. You understand? Because we want to bury it at least this Saturday. We could not bury this week, the past week, but we would have loved. But if it was Indians, the Indians or the Muslim religion would have got their body in a day or in an hour or in a 2 days. But because we are black, I want to emphasize that thing. Our brothers are not doing well, man. And it's about time that we tell it as it is, that our black brothers, when they're in position, they forget about their own people.
Okay. Z, we'll take down your details. Let me put you through to my producer's level so that we can get your contacts. His brother passed away on the 29th of May. It is now the 9th of June, and they still have no details about when this autopsy is going to be ready, when the body will be released to them so that they can prepare for their own processes and things that they have to do, rituals. It's just, how do you expect people to survive? Already what is a difficult and painful moment. Mzi, I'm so sorry that you and your family are having to go through this. We will also follow up on our end, but it should not be acceptable that now you are sent from pillar to post trying to follow up on what is happening. More so having to do it from another province altogether. we'll try and see, Mzi, how we can get involved. Okay, I understand that on the line in KZN. Oh my gosh, I cannot believe it. Sbusiso Vilani, is this you?
It is me.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Firstly, long time no chat. It's been a while since we last spoke or even saw each other. But you know that you're somebody that I have immense love and respect for. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much indeed for having me, and thanks to your listeners as well. I appreciate the opportunity.
I understand that yesterday, of course, you also finished the Comrades Marathon. I think it's your 13th or 14th, Boo?
It was my 14th medal, but I've started 15, so it goes to inform that I have missed one where I did not finish. So yesterday, I collected my 14th medal.
So what some people might not know about you is that you're also a mountaineer. You've conquered Everest, you've conquered Kilimanjaro, you've conquered the 7 wonders of the world in as far as mountaineering is concerned. What gets you or motivates you to put your body through all of that, Sbu?
It tends to be a very tricky or difficult one to answer. But I think once I got to relate to my body, acknowledge what my body is capable of, I refuse to put it back and hold it back or slow it down. So that is where my motivation comes from. It is knowing that it is capable to achieve much more than I would ever think I can or it can, because through the years of doing what I've done, I have accepted one philosophy, personal one, that each one of us can lie to ourselves to say we know our limits. I know my body, what it can take. You will never know how far and how high your body can go. So those of us who have acknowledged with that, who can relate to that, will never stop. And we get the motivation from knowing exactly that fact. That you know what, you are capable, therefore just keep going.
So how do we get there? Because it's quite a long journey in testing your body and what it is that you're capable of. I say this as Zelma is biting into a chocolate muffin.
It takes a long time of exposure to things that you never thought possible. Like in my case, I believed I could climb Everest when the story came up, and I went and I did that. I believed, I must say that coming to the Comrade, I've been a fan for it for many years. I've followed it and watched it, and I never in my mind imagined me running one, because I thought it was such a difficult and brutal event on a human body within 12 hours. But once I grew to understanding that it is not about the event, but what you do to prepare for the event, and I changed my thinking, and as such, I've finished this many. So it takes a level of growth, and it takes a level of putting your body on the line, testing it here and there, and then triumph at times, fail at times, but to identify with yourself and your body of how capable you are. Those of us who've gone out to mountains, those are the things we learn. And then obviously it is also true that you will find moments where you think, you know what, this is not for me. But I would refuse to say people should say, I can't possibly do a Comrades, or I can't possibly climb Everest or any other mountain, without having stood at the bottom of the mountain, took the first 2 steps up and thought, not for me. If you're saying it from sitting at home, then I refuse to accept that.
Sure. Spusiso Vilani, inspirational as always. What a wonderful experience there of him sharing his story. Let's take the latest news headlines. I'm back with more of your calls.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, a man has been shot dead and a child wounded in a suspected taxi-related incident in Luandle Strand over the weekend. Police spokesperson Joseph Swartboy says police are investigating cases of murder and attempted murder. A 25-year-old man is expected to appear before the Calcutta Magistrates Court in Umkhuhlu, Mpumalanga, for the alleged murder of a police officer. The suspect was allegedly found in possession of a cell phone stolen during a business robbery where the police officer was killed. And Eastern Cape authorities are urging motorists to exercise extreme caution as snowfall has been reported on the Vapatsberg Pass along the R61 between Nguba and Graafrenet. I'll have details on these and other stories at 10.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
You're listening to The Talking Point. It is your national round table. I'm taking your calls on 086 000 2032. That's the number to dial, 086 000 2032. On the WhatsApp voice note line, 0614 104 107. So, Sbusiso Vilani says, if you're sitting at the bottom of the mountain and you say you can't climb it, but you haven't even attempted, then actually you don't know what you're talking about. You've got to actually try it out, take a couple of steps in, run just for 30 seconds before you rule yourself out. In Durban, also, somebody who's finished the Comrades Marathon. I believe it's his 5th Comrades Marathon. Magashule Gana, good morning.
Good morning, Cathy, and good morning to the listeners.
Which one is more difficult, running the Comrades or being a politician?
I'll say being a politician because you are on your toes like every second. But Comrades, we run just to test the body, the limit of the body. When you finish. Even with all the pain, sometimes in body parts that you never knew you had, you feel good. You feel a little good after finishing the Comrades. And I've finished 5 Comrades now. So it's a good feeling.
What made you start? What got you off and out of your house into the street?
It was a combination of challenging myself, but also healthy living. So one thing about Comrades is that it teaches you discipline. Many people might think that Comrades is about the day. So like yesterday, 22,000 of us started the race. But actually, the challenging part of Comrades is actually the training, the consistency in the training. Waking up each morning to go and exercise. That's where the big challenging aspect is. So if you stay disciplined to your training, then you will finish Comrades. All it needs is just discipline and consistency.
How do you maintain that consistency, Magashule? While obviously, as somebody who is again in the political space. You're always all over the place, moving from one place to another. You're not always in charge of your schedule. You're not always in charge of how your day is going to unfold.
So one of the things that I try to do, if I'm traveling, I travel with running shoes. So if I get 30 minutes, an hour, then I'll squeeze in a run. Sometimes it's just the exercises, the body exercises that you have to do. It all. So if you know that you will not be, let's say, I will not be home, which means running will be difficult, then I can just do some body workouts wherever I am, like either 30 minutes before I sleep or 30 minutes before I shower. So it's all. That's what I'm saying. The big part is the discipline and the consistency. That's where the challenging. If I would say, when most people find difficulty, it's how to stay consistent and disciplined. That's where the challenge is.
Yeah.
Not all of us can. If you can walk, Cathy. If you can walk, you can run.
No, not really. No, I don't agree with that.
I'm saying if you can walk, you can run.
No. I don't agree with that statement, Makashule.
Just say that you don't want to run. But if you can walk, I'm telling you, you can run.
Not all of us can run. Yes, we can walk, but not all of us can run.
But you see, if you wake up and you run for 30 seconds today, tomorrow you do a minute, and then 3 days later you do 5 minutes. Before you know it, you'll run for 30 minutes. It's the thing. It's about starting. I didn't grow up doing running. I only started running when I was 33, 34. That's when I started running, and when I was 36, I did my first Comrades. So it's just you just have to start. You just have to start. That's where it's at.
It's absolutely inspirational, Magashule. And of course, I'm being facetious. Yes, we can all. If you can walk, you can run. But can you really run the Comrades? Yeah, I don't know.
With discipline
and dedication. Look, for now, we love to cheer you guys on from the sidelines. We love to cheer you on from the sidelines. Congratulations.
Thanks very much, Cathy.
Thank you, Magashule Kana there in Durban. And he finished his 5th Comrades Marathon. Today, Zalma is my technical director for today, so please excuse me if it feels like there's a lot happening off air that you're not part of, because she's such a sport. So as the show is going on, there's a lot of commentary that is also being given, and I think Zalma doesn't like running, because you should see how she's shaking her head, and so she's influencing all of the bad behavior that is taking place on air today.
Morning, Sis Cathy. It's Chase in Mpumalanga. A sport that I would torture my body for, or I can say I will double torture my body for, is boxing, because I love boxing, Sis Cathy. Just unfortunately where we come from is not a popular sport or common sport, but I will torture my body for boxing because I know I have to receive some powerful punches from other guys, so I'll need to be strong. So I have to practice more and more hard, and just because I have to be strong. So that's the sport I will torture my body for.
Take a bite full of mystery on the Tastemaster SA this Tuesday evening at 7:30 on SABC2 as the bottom 6 contestants face off in the Elimination Challenge. It's all about fine dining desserts and finesse. Inspired by South Africa's first award-winning halal fine dining restaurant, the Happy Uncles. Who will taste sweet victory? That's the Tastemaster SA, Tuesday evenings at 7:30. Repeat Wednesdays at 1 and Sundays at 4 p.m. on SABC2.
Hashtag SAFM Talking Point.
All right, we continue the conversation on the talking point. It is still the open line. I'm taking your calls on 086 000 2032, on the WhatsApp voice note line 0614 104 107. Let me go over to Limpopo now. Tuli, good morning to you.
How are you, Sis Cathy?
I'm good, Tuli. Are you a first-time caller? I think you are.
I'm always calling, but I've never spoken to you.
Okay, so your first time on air. Welcome to the show, Tuli. Sorry it's taken you so long to be able to speak with me.
I'm first time talking to you, but okay. I'm always calling other programs.
Okay, I see. All right.
Cathy?
Yes, ma'am.
Let me start by telling you something so beautiful. I have almost a 6-year-old son. He's turning 6 on the 27th of this month. He loves you so very much. He loves you so very much. When you say you are Cathy Mohlahlana, he's like, no, Mom, she's not saying her name properly because he is a Mushala. So he thinks that you are calling your name wrongly.
Oh, that's so sweet, Tuli. Please send him my regards. Thank you so much.
We used to listen to you together. Unfortunately, right now he's in a place of safety. I'm not with him.
Okay.
And then I conceived my son through rape. It's been so hard because I discovered the pregnancy when I was 5 months, 5 days. I had to go on scan. I was losing a lot of weight. There was no sign of pregnancy. And then when the doctor confirmed the pregnancy, I was in shock because I was not in any sexual relationship. The painful part of it is that I was drugged by my own daughter. She's 26 now. She pretended to be doing a birthday braai supper for me. And then I was raped by a neighbor. She has never been arrested or charged with the perpetrator. It's so bad, so much that the police and the father are involved in protecting her. I've been raped, I think 12 times. It started within the family. It's so traumatic, Cathy. And right now I've lost the baby to the social workers. The police in 2023 arrested me, and they claimed that I wanted to kill the child. So I was charged for attempted murder. When I got to court, I was charged for attempted arson. Then they struck the case off the roll. Then I went to collect my 1,500 rand bail, and the social workers are giving me a run for my child. I'm not even sure if I will ever have my child. Now I've even gotten to an extent whereby I'm not even sure if I want him back, because I worked so hard to build that bond, to love him. Because when I discovered that I was pregnant, I couldn't bring myself to attend clinic because I was afraid that I would test positive, and what if it's already too late to protect the baby? But when I delivered the baby...
Tuli, sorry to interrupt you there. I wanted to check with you. Where are you now? As in,
I'm in Limpopo.
Do you stay at home?
I'm homeless right now. I'm here and there. I've lost everything trying to protect my baby. I'm homeless.
Do you have family? Do you have anybody that is supporting you?
No, I'm from Zimbabwe. I came here following my husband. He was an educator here. Actually, I'm the one who brought him here, and it's like it was... he looted me of everything. I was sold to him. He got me pregnant when I was 15. So now the divorce is so dirty, so much that since 2010, I've been having this run with police. They even put me in a coffin when I was pregnant with my second born, and no one has ever been arrested. My children are registered under other people, and every time I report the issue, I'm the one who gets detained for it, and even gets raped in police. I don't even know. I feel like that.
Tuli, I'm going to advise you to, if you can, go to your nearest health facility, whether it's a clinic, whether it's a hospital, and seek assistance there. I think that's going to be a first good start for you. Because
I'm afraid of going to take my antidepressants, because right now, sometimes I feel like they're no longer working for me, especially my sleeping tablets. Sometimes I feel like I'm even going to die of overdose. I feel like I'm even a danger to myself, because the police and the social workers are now at the center of the problem, to an extent that the iPad guy has even forged my signature when I opened the case that I was beaten by police. They're downplaying it. I don't even know what to do, Cathy.
Yeah, Tuli.
Thing is in my house. I'm not even sure whether I want him back or what.
Tuli, the best advice that I can give you is to try and get help, because based on what you have just said on air, and just my initial reading of the whole situation, there might be a lot of help and support that you need. Maybe let me say that just to be safe. So try and contact your local clinic or health facility that you can reach. Even the social workers that have been at the heart of taking your son, those might also be instrumental in helping you in terms of getting the support that you might need in this moment. But there's clearly a lot that is happening there with Tuli. Okay, let me take a quick break, and I'm back with more of your calls.
Planet Earth, third planet from the sun. A cool place within the solar system where you can pause and take a deep breath without your lungs exploding. home to an amazing array of wildlife and amazing landscapes that will leave you breathless either through wonder or fear. For humans, it's a place they call home, the only one that they have now. Team Surai follows a dedicated group of individuals dedicated to protecting the planet. Their mission, to encourage viewers to take concrete steps to protect the Earth. Catch Team Surai Thursdays at 6 p.m. S3, open up.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
What percentage of these schools, these initiation schools, are effectively illegal or illegitimate and they needed to be shut down? What would you think?
My brother, you cannot have a percentage because some will be opening for the first time as we are going to the winter season. That is why we say a school that will not have been registered will not be allowed to operate.
The Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Velinkosi Tlabisa.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM. Find the podcast at safm.co.za. Call us on 086 000 2032.
How's Cathy? You know, Comrades Marathon is like the people who are doing tattoos on their body. You run it once, then you get tired, then you say, no, next year I'm not longer going to do this. But guess what? Next year you do the same thing. Like people who tattoo, they'll do one tattoo and it's painful, and then tomorrow they do another one. Yeah, but I know. That's what it is.
Hi, Cathy. This is Saxon here. Yeah, Mina, in terms of sports, running for me it's quite difficult. But I'm a professional cyclist. My body is able to take that pain. I would go moderations, roughly 120, 130 kilometers on a cycling. But it kills your muscles. Your body needs to adjust to that kind of a race. Thanks, Saxon.
Thanks for that, Saxon. Actually, cycling is not a bad sport as well. I tried indoor cycling, the one that they offer at the gyms. Yeah, but it didn't work for me, hey? But Zelma says she thinks she can try it because at least you're sitting down. Zelma. Oh, gosh. What am I going to do with you? Okay, let me go to Cape Town. Zola, good morning.
Thank you, Cathy. Thanks for the opportunity. Cathy, I was just triggered by one of your callers who just phoned now around the autopsy. I'm in the same Maya, but mine is quite different. On the 17th of July, which is almost a year now, I found a lifeless body of my partner in bed. And it was after a night that I went out with to meet some media friends who came for a state of the nation. What I went through after the death case is what Vusi Pikoli simply referred to as a second initiation in his book. I had to report that to the family. I had to explain what happened, and I also had to promise them that an autopsy report will reveal everything, that there's never a foul play on my side. I've been doing a follow-up case since that 17th of July till to this day. The autopsy report has not come out. Now, the most challenging thing about it is that even insurances are refusing to pay because they say they want to see what really transpired there. I had to fork everything out of my own pocket because that was my life of my life. And at the time, we had a 2-year-old boy who's actually 3 years now, and I'm raising that boy alone. Do you understand how difficult it's been to try and move on when I don't know what really happened?
Zola, and is this an autopsy that was sitting with the state? I would imagine, obviously, because
it's
they have
done,
to get
Cathy,
to...
It's done. It's done because, when you release the body, then the autopsy report should be concluded by then. But the question that I have is, why is it taking so long to be released? And I've been saying, even the investigative officer has been saying, he just doesn't know what is happening.
And is that the only answer that they have given you, Zola?
It is, because I'm sure I've become a nuisance to him because I've been phoning every week since her demise, trying to understand why is it taking so long? When can I expect this thing? Unfortunately, there hasn't been any proper answers pertaining to that.
Sure, yeah, Zola, this is also just such a heavy one, hey? How
Yeah,
have you been
look,
dealing with all of it? Because it's a lot.
It's a clear illustration that even, there's this fallacy that the Cape Town government has been trying to push, saying that they are the most efficient government ever. We stay here, we experience some of these things. These people are just selling lies to people because they're equally inefficient as well. If they cannot be able to process certain easy things like that, and it's just puzzling. I'm just getting so emotional now because I'm reliving the whole thing that I've been enduring since then.
And it's a lot that you had to endure. Look, I think that we'll need to start looking into what is happening with our forensics department. Yes, there have been issues there over the years, different types of issues.
The problem, they haven't been honest. They are not even telling people that they've got backlog or what is their really underlying problem is. They are just keeping quiet, and they are. The most frustrating thing is that you cannot get hold of anyone in that office. They are not actually picking up the phones at all. You can phone even now. You won't find anyone there because they know why.
Yeah. Okay, Zola, thank you so much for raising this with us. I'll put you back to Lebo as well, because I think that we'll need all of this in order to follow up. Remember that there was that issue around DNA testing and the backlog. With the forensics department, the state forensics, at least that was a couple of years ago. And they did get budget to try and, increase resources to deal with the backlog. They had said at the time that they'd made significant progress, but we clearly have to go back to that issue. You can't be waiting for a year for an autopsy report. How are people supposed to have closure and move on? So, Zola, I'm so sorry that has been your experience. Let me go to Cosmos City. Vuyo, good morning.
Cathy, I'm not going to ask how you are. I know you are good.
Thank you,
I was Cathy. I just heard your caller now. Actually, the earlier caller also with regard to the autopsy, and it goes hand in hand with what I think it should go hand in hand with what I'm about to speak of. This case, Yagasen's and Meyiwa, guys, it's been 10 years. You can't complain. The judge can't be complaining, honestly, about one day. Someone taking one day off when the case has been dragging for 10 years. What's one day going to do? How long are you guys still going to drag this case on for? You can't be... How is the family also going to get closure when you're dragging a case for 10 years? And the reason why I'm saying it goes hand in hand with the autopsy report, because, how do you get closure when you don't know what happened to people? And what about the cases that we don't even hear about on the radios or on TV? What about those? Imagine this is such a high-profile case and it's taking so long. For cases where it's not high-profile, what about those ones? So, I know we have a serious problem.
And isn't that part of why the trust and the credibility issues then rise? Because this is what is on full display for the public to see. And people think about, Senzo Meyiwa, he was just such a big part of this country, big part of our sporting culture, that if a guy like him can have something like that happen, and 10 years on, you still don't have answers, what more for me, who doesn't know?
Normal,
Exactly.
normal layman, just a normal person who's not even in the limelight. So it's just, it's very saddening. I think the judge shouldn't even have said what he said, because you can't let a case drag on for so long and you're going to complain for one day. That's just my take. But, you've been going for so long and you have no shame. Now you're going to complain about one day. They must conclude. I think they need to conclude. If it's a fail, it's a fail. If they're innocent and they don't want to give them a guilty judgment, let it be. But don't let it drag on for so long and expect people to still be, like, there's no sense of urgency, honestly, anymore in this case.
Yeah.
And, they must
Vuyo,
just stop.
I can't disagree with you there. Vuyo out in Cosmos City, thanks for calling in and raising that particular issue. And I guess that's probably also just what the family needs, right? Since then, so much has changed. Father has died. So much has changed for that family. Let me go to Mahlope. You're in Ivory Park. Good morning.
Morning, Cathy. I just want to say one thing. There's an operation that is going on in our township every Friday or Thursday or Friday that our police are doing to check foreigners without documents, those illegal ones. So this case, what's going on in our township is that yes, they are doing fine. They are arresting them, but I've got friends that I'm staying with them. Like where he was being around. So the unfortunate part is that after if they've arrested them, they just charge them separately. They must give them 1.5 rand, 1,500 rand. That's the price actually, and then they will release them. So yeah, that's what's going on in our township. This thing is happening every Thursday, Friday. Even the Somalis, those are operating our spaza shop around. They arrest them. I don't know them how much are they giving the police. So that's my main concern. I'm very, very much worried about that because they're charging our people.
And everybody that gets arrested has to pay this fine in order to be legal. And do they release you immediately? So we arrest you, we put you in the back of the bakkie.
Yes.
But do you go to the police station or do we just leave you there until you do what needs to be done and then you can hop on off again?
Some, if they've got cash, they will release them on the spot after, And then some, what they're going to do, what they're doing actually is that they will take them to the police station. They will tell them, just call your nearest brother, whoever must come and bring them up. That's what's going on in our township. I'm sorry because I'm worried if some of my friends that I know, the police, that maybe they can be listening. But that's what's happening in our township. They do the nice operation. We are driving on crazy traffic on Fridays, Saturdays. Even on Saturdays, they also do that. They have nice operation there, but unfortunately, that's what they are doing after.
Sure. Mahlope, thanks for alerting that to us. It is something that we will take up with the police. I think.
This Mapanyas, I'm not against them, but that's a problem. But thanks for taking my call.
It's important that we follow up on that issue, especially if the allegation is that these raids are also set up just as a means for police to collect bribes from people. It can't be. All right, it's time for the latest news update.
In our top stories, missing Comrades runner found alive and Western Cape Police probe deadly taxi-related incident. Good morning. A female runner who was reported missing yesterday after completing the Comrades Marathon has been found in a critical condition on Point Road in the Durban CBD. ALS paramedic spokesperson Gareth Jameson says after she was reported missing, a wide-scale search was launched.
Just an update for the missing runner that has been located near the NSRI base on Point Road in the Durban Central area. The Neki 91 aeromedical helicopter has been activated to rapidly transport the critically injured runner through to a nearby hospital for the urgent care that she requires. Point Road has been closed off by SAPS and Metro Police and awaiting arrival of the Neki 91 helicopter.
A man has been shot dead and a child wounded in a suspected taxi-related incident in Loandle Strand over the weekend. Police spokesperson Joseph Swartboy says officers found the victim in a vehicle on Vulindlela Street. The wounded 8-year-old child was taken to hospital. Swartboy says police are investigating cases of murder and attempted murder.
The suspects fled the scene and they are yet to be arrested. The motive for this attack is believed to be taxi-related. Luandle police registered cases of murder and attempted murder for further investigation. We appeal to anyone with information to please call Crime Stop on 08600 10111 or alternatively use the mobile application MySaps anonymously.
A 25-year-old man is expected to appear before the Calcutta Magistrates Court in Umkhuhlu, Mpumalanga, for the alleged murder of a police officer. The suspect was allegedly found in possession of a cell phone stolen during a business robbery where the police officer was killed. Two unknown people shot Constable Kulani Shabangu multiple times during a robbery outside a salon in Lilydale 2 weeks ago. Shabangu was attached to the Volksrust Visible Policing Unit. The South African Weather Service says the cold front currently sweeping through Gauteng is only expected to pass on Wednesday. Residents have been advised to keep warm and be extra cautious when using heating devices to prevent fire incidents. Motorists are also urged to exercise extreme caution whilst driving today due to wet and slippery road conditions. Forecaster Lihlohonolo Tobela.
80% chance of rain and showers being observed in most parts of the central and the southern parts of the province. We're expecting cold temperatures to still persist into tomorrow, and we're expecting cold temperatures to last up until Wednesday. But from there, you can start seeing normal temperatures that are expected in winter that won't be as cold as what we're getting today.
Eastern Cape authorities are urging motorists to exercise extreme caution as snowfall has been reported on the Wapatsberg Pass along the R61 between Nguba and Graafrenet. Provincial Department of Transport spokesperson Unati Bingose says the road remains open for now, but drivers are advised to travel only if necessary.
We expect a very disruptive day on our roads. As the weather conditions are less than ideal, the mercury has plummeted down to below 2 digits in some of those areas that are prone to snowfalls, your Graafrenet, your Kradok Nguba, and many other mountain areas. No roads have been closed as yet, but we are keeping a close eye. And when the need arises to close the roads, we won't hesitate to do so. The least we are calling from our road users is to understand, because that will be done in the interest of their safety.
And finally, Italians have voted in modest numbers in Italy's referendum on whether to make it easier for foreigners to obtain citizenship. By late afternoon yesterday, 20% of voters had cast a ballot on the first of two voting days. The right-wing government of the Prime Minister opposes any easing of citizenship rules and discouraged Italians from voting. Recapping the top story, a female runner who was reported missing yesterday after completing the Comrades Marathon has been found in a critical condition on Point Road in the Durban CBD. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
13 Southern African nations and North African guests, Morocco, will battle it out for the ultimate glory in the Hollywood Bets COSAFA Cup 2025 in Mangaung, Bloemfontein. Catch the beautiful game on SABC Plus, SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC 1 from 4 to 15 June. Stay tuned to SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
SAFM invites young people between the ages of 18 to 35 to take over the airwaves this Youth Month. All you have to do is send a WhatsApp voice note or text message to 061 410 4107 or email info@safm.co.za. Tell us which show you'd like to co-host and what youth-focused issues the G20 should incorporate ahead of the summit. And we could be calling you. Terms and conditions apply.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
All right, it's 8 after 10 o'clock. Welcome to the second hour of The Talking Point as we lead conversations that move us. Coming up in this hour, we're going to be zoning in on the issue of gender-based violence and femicide in our country. We'll be joined by a number of guests that will hopefully bring different perspectives to this problem that we're confronted with and how we can begin to rethink the ways in which we are approaching this issue of violence as a society and break the cycle effectively that we are caught up in, that is so plain for not only us but for the whole world to see, right? Because we have to be honest about how the rest of the world perceives South Africa when it comes to crime, but also when it comes to gender-based violence. And that it is abnormal that we have the levels of crime that we do. It is abnormal that we have the levels of violence against women and femicide that we do. So that conversation will be coming up throughout the hour. Before we get to that, lots of your WhatsApp voice notes on different issues for the day. Thank you for all of the engagement on the open line. We'll take a couple of those voice notes and then get into our 10 o'clock.
Good morning, Cathy and the listeners. It's Wilson here, East London. Cathy, on the issue of DNA, at one stage when I was still in the police, we were shocked when the police appointed Mr. Lieutenant General Patlani as the head of forensic. General Patlani does not have qualification in forensic. Doesn't know anything about that, but he was put there. So imagine, Cathy, putting someone who doesn't even have a qualification, doesn't have understanding about that work, to head forensic. He never solved backlog. He never done anything. What he did is just to put his family members there.
Cathy, Cyril Ramaphosa needs to say something about all of these problems we have in the country. He has never addressed anything, be it the crime, be it the forensics that people are crying about, which is important to, closure for their families in times of death. There's so many problems, and yet Cyril Ramaphosa is jet-setting. He wants to be on international stages. And up till today, he hasn't said a word about the Cape Flats murder rate, the gang fights and things like that. It's pathetic, Teresa.
Hey, this is Cathy. I wanted to speak about marathon, Comrades Marathon, but then the lady who just called from Limpopo, I wish SAFM can help that lady. Please, Sis Cathy, can you help that lady? It's sometimes there are certain calls that just break your soul, You even think of certain stuff that this is unbelievable that it can happen in our time, in our land, in our country. Please help that lady, Sis Cathy from Limpopo. And big up to our queen, Hertstein. She's amazing. I love her smile. She smiled from the beginning to the end. This is Cathy. And he was greeting everybody. I love it. Big up to the team. Gwena.
Morning, Cathy. It's Kevin from Velcom. I don't think running for mayor in Joburg is a good idea because
metros now are run by young people who understand that we are in the fourth industrial revolution era. So she's going to embarrass herself because her track record of service delivery is not inclusive at all. She only catered for people in Cape Town and ignored those in Guguletu while she was, the mayor in the city of Cape Town. So I don't think it's a good idea running for her mayor at her age, because her age really is a discourage in politics. Thanks.
Morning, Sis Cathy. Hey, I hope you will be able to help us in Pitratif Pumalanga Mkondo. The taxi patrollers, they are so rough, manhandling people, forcefully getting people out of people's cars. They want everyone to go to a taxi, everyone. The way they behave like police, because they wear their guns, publicly, to instill fear to us. Please, man, get somebody from the taxi association to deal with Peter Tiff, please, begging you. Please, 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 please. I must be anonymous. This is serious.
In a land scorched by the sun and shaped by time, life refuses to surrender. From the silent stalk of the Arabian leopard to the resilient march of the sand gazelle, witness nature's fiercest survivors. Arabian Inferno, a journey into one of Earth's most extreme habitats where every day is a battle for survival. This is the wild. This is Arabian Inferno. Sundays at 6 p.m. on S3. Open up.
With the ever-changing financial landscape, it can be difficult to make sense of all the moves at times. Join me, Jimmy Moyaha, on the SAFM Market Update with MoneyWeb, Mondays to Thursdays, 6 to 7 p.m, as we break down the key market trends, top financial stories, and smart investment insights, all in one place. It's everything you need to stay financially informed and ahead of the curve. Proudly brought to you by Volvo. It's safe to be brave with Volvo.
Hashtag SAFM Talking Point.
You're listening to The Talking Point. We continue the conversation on the show this morning, and we're looking now into the issue of femicide and gender-based violence. Let me welcome our guests for this conversation. Bulelwa Adonis is spokesperson for Women for Change. Bulelwa, good morning to you.
Good morning, Sis Cathy. Thank you so much for having me.
Archie Piniti is from Banna Buang Men's Forum. Archie, good morning.
Good morning, Sis Cathy.
And
good morning to your listeners.
Thank you. And Nomsa Nabo is the director responsible for social empowerment for women in the Department of Women, Children and People with Disabilities. Nomsa, good morning.
Good morning, Sissy, and good morning to the listeners. And thank you for having me.
Of course, we know the script of our country, right? Where you tune in, or even if you don't tune in, to a radio station, to a news bulletin, to a TV bulletin, it's going to be somewhere around you where you're going to hear the news of a woman who has died, who even has died at the hands of a loved one and not necessarily at the hands of a stranger. It's clear that there is an approach that we're taking towards dealing with gender-based violence that is not reaching society. It's not reaching us as a society where we are. The interventions are not bringing the outcomes that are desired. And I wonder, Bulelwa, in your view, how do we need to be approaching this very big challenge that we're dealing with differently?
Mm-hmm. You know, Sis Cathy, I think the real question at hand right now is what haven't we done? Clearly, as you've stated, maybe perhaps it's our approach. From our side in the forefront as an organization, we think two things are missing: urgency and accountability. We have everything else. We have, one of the best legislations in the world. We have all of these campaigns. We speak about this. We have conversations like these. but it's not consistent enough. It's the people that are our leaders are not being held accountable. Our SAPS, the justice system, the state that it's in, I think accountability and urgency is where we lack as a country. I think everything else we have, unfortunately. There's so many things where we fall short. I mean, we have the NSP, where it revolves around, Pillar 6 is solely around gender-based violence. But then it lacks funding. Things like that. Organizations like ourselves also don't have funding. We were missing these intricate parts. But I think in contribution to that, it's a lack of urgency and a lack of accountability. I mean, I can touch on 16 days when we're talking about a 365-day pandemic. I think it's things like that. I don't think there's something that we haven't done as a country. I think that the question at hand is, are we urgent enough? Are we being held accountable enough?
Archie?
Hello, Sis Cathy.
I'm going to ask you to answer the same question.
Yeah, let me also greet my fellow panelists there with you, Sis Cathy. Sis Cathy, I must concur with the first speaker when she said accountability, lack of accountability. It's what is hindering the progress in terms of curbing the scourge of GBV. Because if you look at the most vulnerable people or the most victims are women and girl children. And we as an organization, a men's forum, we have taken a step to be proactive in terms of prevention measures that can be followed. But now you become proactive because in most cases, men's forums, you find that they preach to the already converted audiences, but they don't go straight to the root of people who are yet not converted. So we have taken a stand of saying this country has one of the best pieces of legislation. The only thing that we need to do as a country now, because we have done our part on the ground, we are reaching out to places of liquor, we are reaching out to places of recreational facilities where men gather, and we talk to them. We even take a step further of saying, when we hear a man has violated or is abusive towards the wife, we go there and we speak to that man and we make sure that we deal with that man. Even with the boy child, we have adopted that program because we cannot speak to men about stopping or ending gender-based violence when we don't even invest to the upcoming generation so that when they grow up, they are a better generation that will understand how to deal with women, how to treat our girls. But now, in accordance with the first speaker, we've got the NSP. When you look the Pillar 1 is about accountability, which is the part of the state. We don't have leaders that we can keep accountable. You find that today we've got MECs that are marching with us in the court. And these people are in the positions of strategy where they can just say, guys, to their fellow counterparts who are other MECs in other departments, they can just say to them, let's go to the boardroom. Let's see how best can we implement the laws and the legislations that we have and keep people accountable for not doing their work. Because there is a gap between police and justice system. Because the police will arrest and they will hand over the case, the docket, to the IO. And from the IO, the docket will go to the prosecutor. That is where you'll find these people are getting bail, these people are getting acquitted because of lack of evidence. It's not that there's lack of evidence, but it's only coordination between the legal fraternity that needs to deal with issues of GBV. But now, for us to be able to say we are winning, there's nothing that we haven't done. We have done it all. Accountability, lack of accountability, it's what hinders progress in terms of us winning this case. Because you find even we as the civil organizations, Instead of government supporting us financially, because we are not funded, we are running from zero budget, and yet we are doing programs. You find that government wants to compete with the civil organizations, because civil organizations are on the ground on a daily basis. They are the ones who see and understand the challenges, but they want to compete with civil movements and organizations. Look at NSP dashboard. You will find that the dashboard implies that there are no activities. There's nothing being done in terms of programs that can keep the GBV and femicide. But they are there. It's only that they don't report what civil organizations are doing.
All right. Thanks for that, Archie. Nomsa, let me give you a chance also to weigh in on the same question.
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity. Let me just start by basically outlining the role of the Department of Women and Youth and Persons with Disabilities. Our role is to monitor the implementation of the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide, and ensure that there is coordination of efforts from various stakeholders, including the civil society organizations that are there, coordination between the government department and civil society organizations, and enforce accountability. And as a result, because of that function, we receive a quarterly report from the departments indicating how the efforts that they have implemented according to their plans and mandates. What plans have they implemented in the fight against gender-based violence, and what is the progress, and so forth and so forth. Now, what we see, from our position as one of the main problems when it comes to fighting gender-based violence is lack of coordination of effort between, like Oboti said earlier on, between the government departments and the civil society organizations. This starts from up at national level up to the ground. People are implementing their own initiatives, but we will find that there is no multi-stakeholder plan where you will, even at the local municipality level. At local municipality level, one of our functions is to work with COCTA and SALGA to ensure that municipalities, they lead and ensure that there are gender-based violence and multi-stakeholder plans, where all the stakeholders who are key in the fight against gender-based violence, they plan together to say that this is the challenge in our local area. These are the interventions we are going to implement. This is how we are going to work together. This is your strength and this is your weakness, and this is how we are going to be able to assist each other. So one of the roles of the Department of Women is to ensure that coordination happens from the national up to the local level. At local level, we are working with these municipalities, obviously through COCTA, to ensure that the rapid response teams on gender-based violence are established, and all key stakeholders who are supposed to be central in fighting gender-based violence are there, and they indicate what their plans are, and they implement those plans. That is at the local level. At national level, we've got the interministerial committees, an interministerial committee that has got departments who are focusing on gender-based violence, but also those that are focusing on substance abuse. Because one of the things we have realized is that there is a close relationship between gender-based violence and substance abuse. You take, for example, the case that has happened, of the old lady, 7-year-old lady that has been killed by his son. That case is linked to substance abuse. So one of the initiatives that has started to ensure that even at national level, the leadership there has to be a linkage in terms of the interventions between gender-based violence and substance abuse, because those two, there's a linkage between those two. So for us, the role of this national strategic plan is to ensure that this coordination of effort by all these stakeholders, starting with prevention, supporting victims, coordination is very important, because even when you've got a victim of gender-based violence, that victim is not supported by just Department of Social Development. SAPS is there. The Tutuzela centers are there. The victim friendly rooms are there to support that victim. So it makes sense then to ensure that there is this coordination, working together, you plan together, you share resources, and so forth and so forth. Thank you.
And perhaps then to continue the conversation, what has been the experience of the department in trying to coordinate all of the contributions from these various stakeholders, whether it's civil society, whether it's business, because again, we have to understand what in our model has not worked. And to the extent that we're not seeing the result, there obviously is a broken chain somewhere. Nomsa?
Oh, okay. Can I answer that? Okay. So what we have seen in this monitoring and coordination, as we have indicated, is one of at the moment of our weakest areas. And I've mentioned the kind of interventions that we are implementing. But also, you see, there are obviously some departments that are reporting on their initiatives. They are reporting on the initiatives that they have implemented and so forth and so forth. But you would find that when you go to the ground, in terms of the functionality of, for example, the facilities that they have said they are in place and are functional, communities are complaining about those facilities. They are either not functional or there are serious problems with regards to those facilities. Now, one of the interventions that we are implementing now with together with COCTA and the municipalities is we've appointed what we call them technical monitors and data analysts. To go to the facilities. If the department says we've got this facility and that facility, we are going to those facilities to monitor their functionality. Certainly, we monitor their functionality in terms of existence, in terms of the services that they say are in place, but also in terms of whether they meet the standard. Because in most of these institutions, the Thuthuzela Care Centers, the Victim Empowerment Center, there are procedures and protocols that are supposed to guide their operations. So one of the functions is to check, are all the facilities there, and are they functional and are they meeting the standard in terms of servicing these the victims? Because one of the challenges is that we receive at national level, we are receiving reports to say that this and that is happening, but now it's monitoring of that and ensuring that those facilities are up to standard.
All right. We're going to continue this conversation shortly. It's now 10:30. Time for your latest headlines.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, a female runner who was reported missing yesterday after completing the Comrades Marathon has been found in a critical condition on Point Road in the Durban CBD. Traffic authorities in Cape Town say they've effected road closures in Somerset West this morning due to taxi blockades. Spokesperson Kevin Jacobs says traffic is being obstructed from some of the routes near the public transport interchange. And the South African Weather Service says the cold front currently sweeping through Gauteng is only expected to pass on Wednesday. Residents have been advised to keep warm and be extra cautious when using heating devices to prevent fire incidents. I'll have details on these and other stories at 11.
Taking a look at your markets this morning, the rand is currently trading at 17 rand 71 to the dollar, 24 rand 01 to the pound, and 20 rand 23 to the euro. Markets in Asia were higher at the closing bell. The JSE green across the board in mid-morning trade. Markets in Europe are weaker this hour. Gold is trading at $3,323. Platinum, $1,210 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $66.25 a barrel.
In a land scorched by the sun and shaped by time, life refuses to surrender. From the silent stalk of the Arabian leopard to the resilient march of the sand gazelle, witness nature's fiercest survivors. Arabian Inferno, a journey into one of Earth's most extreme habitats where every day is a battle for survival. This is the wild. This is Arabian Inferno. Sundays at 6 p.m. on S3. Open up.
It's a game of two halves, represented by two national flags. And both nations are chasing victory to bring joy to their citizens. This is more than just an international friendly. It is the Southern African Derby. Mzansi's Bafana Bafana face the Mambas of Mars. Catch the incredible action of African football. South Africa versus Mozambique on Tuesday, 10 June at 7 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and S3. proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Hashtag SAFM Talking Point.
All right, we continue the conversation on the talking point. And of course, I'll also be taking your contributions to the conversation we're having this hour. The number to dial for our studio line, 086 000 2032. That's 086 000 2032. On the WhatsApp voice note line, 0614 104 107. Our guest this morning, Bulelwa Adonis, spokesperson for Women for Change, Achi Piniti, who is from Banna Buang Men's Forum, and Nomsa Nabo, who is the director responsible for social empowerment for women in the Department of Women, Children and People with Disabilities. So a lot then has been said in terms of our guests identifying, at least from their point of view, why it is they believe we find ourselves here. And key to it is that there isn't anything we need to be doing or that we haven't done to try and deal with the issue of gender-based violence, and pointing then to a lack of accountability. I want to stay with this question of accountability because often, Bulelwa, when we talk about accountability as a society, often that is code word for government, and that there are things that need to be done from a government and from a services point of view that are not being done, and therefore. Now, when we look at violence in and of itself, it's that you interact with the services, whether it's when you first show up at a clinic, at a hospital, at a police station to report what has happened. All of that is happening after the fact. So it is after the violation has taken place. And so the directing of that accountability, have we directed that accountability justly and fairly across society to the point that we can say, yes, we know that as society, we have dealt with the criminals amongst us, and those that still continue to perpetuate the crime are those that now are in the hands of the police and the criminal justice system, and we're solely being let down on that aspect. Bulelwa?
Cathy, you make a really good point. I do think from a societal perspective, when we say the word accountability, you're right, it is most often it is a code word for government. And I've always said on numerous occasions that, especially as rape capital of the world, and seeing how plagued we are by GBVF and why organizations like ourselves want gender-based violence and femicide to be declared a national disaster, is because we have an understanding that all of us need to take accountability in essence. We can no longer afford to point at one party, one entity. I do hear what you're saying in terms of, after the violation that, then it gets to the government facilities, be it a hospital or SAPS, and so forth. But as me and one of my fellow panelists has said, is that especially us on the forefront, there is only so much that we can do, especially those of us who are not funded by government. There's so much that we can do on the ground. Hence, we are so, direct in saying government, because there's only so much that organizations like ourselves and my other panelist organization can do with the men, that we can do from the ground, especially when we're not funded. Why we turn to them, giving the authority that they have, the power that they have, But the third panelist said it so beautifully that we need to all work together. But now it's about asking the question of, that monitoring that Sis was speaking about. How are we, what work is being done in maintaining, going back to that, checking that, vetting that, making sure that the monitoring of this is being is significant, essentially. But all in all, I do think to some extent that there's been a justified manner in how we approach accountability, because people, society, there's only so much that we can do. But I will say, from time to time, we do have the tendency to point at one entity as opposed to actually looking at, from our perspective as society, what have we done? What have we normalized? I always speak about the power of being a neighbor. As an individual, as a South African, what are you doing? What conversations are you having? Who are you holding accountable in your circle? What are you enabling? What are you not enabling, within your circle, within your reach? What are we doing within ourselves as society? Something I also think that we don't take accountability in too often as society. So I will say, in that aspect, maybe it's not too justified, but to some extent, I do think that it is justifiable to say, government, we need you to be held accountable, especially at the state, with people in the front line, organizations like ourselves in the front line, who are trying to do the best that we can, and we can only do so much, with no funding. So
I'm curious to know, Bulelwa, what would you be doing? What is the work that you could be doing if you had additional resources? And I ask this question also in light of what you've said earlier on in laying, in making the point that you don't believe there's anything else that you think we can be doing as a society that we have not already done.
So in our case, as Women for Change, what initially started in 2016, our founder initially wanted to create an organization to create awareness against gender-based violence and femicide. Little did we know that we'd turn into this safe space for victims and survivors and their loved ones. So had we had funding, number one, we'd have a bigger team. I think people are under the assumption that Women for Change is this huge team when I can literally count the amount of members we have on one hand. We are that small. We're a small number, meaning that it's limited sources. So things like our victim support, with a larger team, meaning we can speed up processes. We can speed up helping people, assisting people in their cases, such things. We can actually have systems in place where people can not just DM us, which is essentially how things are functioning now. People reach out to us, people send us a DM, or people send us an email, and we speak from there. Then we send the necessary resources from there. We can get to a point where we have our own paid, counselors and attorneys for ourselves that people can entrust, because we've already gotten to a point as an organization where people are so entrusting in us that they want to come to us specifically as an organization to do all these things, So now we have to play all these different roles, when essentially now we can actually eliminate the role of just being people who extend resources and whatnot, but actually be a hub where people can get the full help. I mean, yes, they are getting victim support and everything, but we can have a bigger team. We can have foster basically efficiency in terms of work and in terms of accessibility to ourselves, us having resources for ourselves, so things like that. Yes.
Okay, Archie. Again, the issue of accountability, and maybe speak to us about what that accountability looks like in the context of the work that you do and the conversation and the reflections that have just been shared between Bulelwa and myself.
Sis Cathy, let me just say, when we talk about accountability, we are talking about, and it starts with an individual like me, where I can say, I need to check on my behavior. I need to start looking at myself differently. Then you broaden up to the people around you. Because if I cannot take accountability of myself as an individual, how will I take accountability about my responsibilities towards others? So that is where we start. Indeed, it will stretch until it gets to government, where we say, as government, what is it that you are doing in terms of assisting? Because the accountability when it comes to government, we only now stretching it up and broader, because they are the custodian of this country. They are the ones who have the resources, the means, everything to make sure that organizations such as us and Women and Change are able to execute their programs on the ground. And I liked what our panelist from the Department of Women, what she said. When she said they realized that there is no coordination from national level to the ground. And if there is no coordination, how can we keep each other accountable? Because remember, as an organization, as a men's forum, Banabua Men's Forum, we need to work together with all stakeholders in harmony so that we may also keep checks on each other. So that, because in most cases you find that when we talk about accountability, it's not that we are attacking, but we are saying, indeed, this is what we have done in terms of our programs with the little or no budget that we have, but the passion drives us to continue doing the work. But if we had a bigger support from government in terms of funding, then already we have our own social workers that are volunteering their time to our to our organizations. We've got psychologists that are volunteering their time to us as an organization. We are trying by all means to professionalize the services of what we can offer to the boy child and the men, and also women also. We are not just advocating for men. We are catering for men, but we also advocate for men, for women and girls, and the most vulnerable groups like the elderly and your disability people and the LGBTQI community.
Sure.
We cater for everyone. And it's very rare you find a men's forum catering for this, for everyone, in a perspective of professional service. Now, yes.
One of the things that, we also have to acknowledge and sort of be honest about is that there seems to be more of an approach of competition amongst NGOs that are operating in the space rather than that of collaboration. Because the reality is that one shouldn't need a department of women to be the one that is coordinating and centralizing the various interventions that are taking place at different levels. Yes, is it important that that is happening and that it exists? Absolutely, because government has to have a handle on things. But this could easily be something that civil society on its own could be working to better plan around.
Yes. Let me show you one of the examples that the approach that we have taken. There is indeed that aspect of competition within the civil movement, but we have made it our responsibility to work together with other organizations. We've got Buambasadi in Free State. We've got Sefuranto Mbela Foundation. We've got Mary in Fixbeck. She has her foundation there. We've got Majita Saturday, who are also a men's forum. We've got Men Up Ndoda, who are also a men's forum. Motabi. We are trying our level best to have a coordinated approach in terms of working together as NPOs and NGOs, so that we are able to consolidate the programs that we have, because you may find that most of our programs are copy and paste programs. But once we come together as civil organizations, we are able to have a bigger impact, because when we are having a meeting or a session where we try to come up with programs that we have and we consolidate them, it helps us a lot in terms of making sure that we reach a broader spectrum in a very small, a little time that we have. And the issue of budget, it becomes lesser of an issue to us, because now you find that at least I know I can be able to call the next organization to say, what is it that you can help us with? Because of this is what we are struggling with. So if we can take all organizations in the country, in Free State alone, we've got 3,000 NPOs, and you find only 21 of them are at least trying to do something. Others are just registered NPOs, but they are non-active, but they are existing. They are just non-active. So we need to work together before, as civil organizations, before we can say, government, what is it that you can put on the table? Because government cannot go to 3,000 NPOs in one province and then say, this is what we are going to fund everyone. But we need to come together, and this is the approach that we have already taken. When we talk about accountability, Cathy, and we are not blaming, but we are just saying it will assist us in terms of going forward.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay, Archie, thanks for that contribution. Nomsa, one also gets a sense that there isn't that laser-sharp focus on what the problem or what the solution that we have identified that we need to be working towards is. So if the issue was to say, in order to deal with gender-based violence, we are targeting men, and you have everybody working on that, then of course it would have a much greater impact than what sometimes comes across as sort of everybody doing what they're doing in their own spaces. Yes, of course, it speaks to issues that exist, but I wonder to what extent the lack of focus and what comes across as a lack of priority affects the outcomes that we're striving for.
Okay. Thank you for that question. You see, the problem of gender-based violence is very complex. So the solutions, to this sketch, are multi-pronged, because solutions have to focus on prevention. They have to focus on fixing the criminal justice system. They have to focus on the issues of economy, ensuring that groups that are often victims of gender-based violence, their economic opportunities are increased so that they don't stay people don't stay in relationships because they depend on the perpetrator. So that is why someone may be tempted to think that we are everywhere, But even the National Strategy Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide, that is why it has got those 6 pillars. Because it realizes that the scourge of gender-based violence is very complex, and there are many interventions that have to be implemented. But you are speaking here about it. Prevention is very important. The interventions that you've spoken about in the previous week, involving men is very important. Building the capacity is very important. Educating is very important. So, if we were to weigh, the importance of these initiatives or approaches to fighting gender-based violence, I would say that prevention is key. In this, most resources have to be invested in prevention. Because the moment you prevent, then the incidences of gender-based violence will be reduced. But I'm afraid it's not possible to say we are just focusing on this when it comes to fighting the scourge, because just the scourge itself is a very complex societal a problem, that is linked to so many other social problems, like substance abuse and so forth and so forth. So that is why we've got this National Strategic Plan. But for each of those pillars, there are departments that are leading, to ensure that a mandate has been attached to a department in order to lead in fighting gender-based violence when it comes to issues of prevention. Thank you.
All right. Let me bring in here some of the contributions of our listeners. Spusiso, you're calling from Eshowe. Good morning.
Yes, good morning, Cathy. How are you?
Good, Spusiso. Go for it.
Yes. I'm amazed when your panelists are talking about accountability and coordination. Those are good values, but they are not implementing them. I, for one, I have an NPC. I tried to open up an NPO And when I went to Department of Social Development, they said they will not open an NPO for me because people open NPOs in order to enrich themselves, and then they become redundant and all that. Okay, to cut a long story short, I am a person living with disability here in Umlala municipality, and I have collected a group of 50 boys because I want to teach them how to be men. But my NPC is not compliant because I have visual impairment. I need somebody to help me for my NPC to be compliant, so that I will be able to get funding and be able to do what I want to do.
And
so
and Spusiso, is the only way of doing this work through the formalized structure and through getting some form of funding?
Yes, that's the only way. You must have an NPO or an NPC.
Okay. All right, Spusiso.
So I wish Sisnomsa can help me to become compliant so that I can be able to acquire funding.
Okay. All right, Spusiso. Thanks for that contribution. Let me bring in more of our listeners who have sent through these voice notes.
Good morning, Oskethy. It's Fred Tracker here in Western Cape. Oskethy, we can have 1 million organizations speaking about gender-based violence. The bottom line is men need to stop this. At the end of the day, they will go and save their time and come back and do the same crime again. So there need to be, consequences of this gender-based violence. Proper ones, not what we are seeing right now. We are not going to go anywhere. People will come on radio and advise women, don't give your phone numbers, don't go out on date. They are not even safe at their own homes. Fathers are raping their own children.
Good morning, Cathy. Such an important discussion. And from a personal point of view, particularly as a woman who is vulnerable in this society, issues of gender-based violence, yes, I mean, it's topical. It's something that is a burning issue right now, and it's always been and probably will be for a long time. But one of the biggest issues from my personal experience trying to contribute and participate in my own community is the conflicting animosity amongst the organization. I think let's have less NGOs and just have ensure that from government's point of view and institutional point of view that there is presence in police stations, in communities, so that we know exactly what the department's role is and see accountability to those that are supposed to ensure safety. Thank you, Meta.
All right, thanks for those WhatsApp voice notes. Then to round off the conversation, as I think about all that has been said in the last hour, Bulelwa, part of the emphasis has been on what happens after women have been violated. And this question of prevention is one that I'm still stuck on, because how do we ensure, as some have also raised, that we deal with the violence at the root? Because we cannot take a posture as a society that anticipates that, well, the violence will happen. And so because this is where we are prepared to deal with the violence. Not that we accept it, but that we have to have steps to deal with it because we've seemingly failed in uprooting it.
Sis Cathy, you said something very important. You said we shouldn't take up the posture where we already assume that, we're going to be violated, and that is unfortunately the reality. And in fact, I'm reminded of a video I saw this past week of a young lady who said that as South Africans, we've gotten to a point where there's a bigger worry of men being afraid of, or wondering when to get bail. But there's no longer seeing things like rape and gender-based violence and femicide as an issue. The mentality, the behavior itself, the pandemic itself. And I think that's unfortunately where we've gotten as a nation, as a country. That and you know what, I really appreciate the passion expressed in the second caller, because in fact she reminded me of something that I forgot to add when you spoke about accountability. I think sometimes the key word for accountability as South Africans is that the unspoken expectation where primarily women and children, we are the victims and survivors of GBVF, but we also seem to be carrying the burden of fixing this issue, of being the problem solvers of this issue. So I definitely think in terms of prevention, we need to go back to seeing gender-based violence and femicide as a pandemic. I think we're too numb to it as a country. I think we're too used to going to our news and seeing that, you know what, there's going to be a case, something gruesome has happened, So I think it's readjusting our mentalities to seeing this as a pandemic, seeing this as an issue, and not allowing the lack of accountability, the poor justice system to affect our perspective on why this is as bad as we say it is.
Okay. Archie?
Cathy, thank you. Let me just put it this way. You heard from the callers and the voice notes that you received. Only one man came in. And that on its own, it tells you the level of us men in terms of the approach and the acknowledgement of the pandemic that we are faced with, of which is GBV and femicide, and at the hands of us as men. So we need to, as men, to stand up and start to speak up and to start acknowledging that the way we have been raised, it was not right. Because now we were raised that men are these supernatural human beings, men are providers, men are these powerful figures. They were not taught to express their emotions, and they were not taught to be able to be vocal about how they feel. And this thing is a pandemic on its own. So we as men, we need to start coming out and seeking help, especially the mental health of men. It should be prioritized in order for us to be able to win this battle.
Okay.
We need to start there and saying we focus on men and boy children, but we are not leaving behind our women.
All
because
right.
The more we empower them, the more we need to also adjust the mindset of men in order to accept that things are changing, and these are the dynamics.
All right, we're completely out of time for this conversation. That's where we'll leave it for today. It's time for your latest news update.
In our top stories, missing Comrades runner found alive and Trump's travel ban on 12 countries in effect. Good morning. A female runner who was reported missing yesterday after completing the Comrades Marathon has been found in a critical condition on Point Road in the Durban CBD. ALS paramedic spokesperson Gareth Jamieson says after she was reported missing, a wide-scale search was launched.
Just an update for the missing runner that has been located near the NSRI base on Point Road in the Durban Central area. The Neki 91 aeromedical helicopter has been activated to rapidly transport the critically injured runner through to a nearby hospital for the urgent care that she requires. Point Road has been closed off by SAPS and Metro Police and awaiting arrival of the Neki 91 helicopter.
KwaZulu-Natal is bracing itself for heavy rainfall that may result in flooding. The South African Weather Service has issued a yellow level 2 alert. It warns of severe thunderstorms with heavy downpours over the southern and eastern parts of the province. Forecaster Ayanda Nsele says snow is expected, but only confined to the mountain tops.
We are expecting 80% chance of rain, showers and thunder showers, but 60 in the north and then 80 in the extreme northeastern parts. We're expecting very cold conditions over the southwestern parts and cold over most parts of the province, but cooler along the coast and adjacent interior.
In Gauteng, the South African Weather Service says the cold front currently sweeping through is only expected to pass on Wednesday. Residents have been advised to keep warm and be extra cautious when using heating devices to prevent fire incidents. Motorists are also urged to exercise extreme caution whilst driving today due to wet and slippery road conditions. Forecast Honolo Tobela.
80% chance of rain and showers being observed in most parts of the central and the southern parts of the province. We're expecting cold temperatures to still persist into tomorrow, and we're expecting cold temperatures to last up until Wednesday. But from Thursday, you can start seeing normal temperatures that are expected in winter that won't be as cold as what we're getting today.
Traffic authorities in Cape Town say they've affected road closures in Somerset West this morning due to taxi blockades. Spokesperson Kevin Jacobs says traffic is being obstructed from some of the routes near the public transport interchange. Jacobs says Victoria Road is closed between the N2 and Reed Street, while De Beers Road is closed at the N2.
Please use alternative routes until further notice or delay non-essential travel. Traffic officers are on standby to assist with diversions.
And finally, President Donald Trump's order banning citizens of 12 countries from entering the United States has come into effect. This forms part of his policy to restrict immigration. The ban was announced last week before its implementation. The BBC's Anne Soy has the details.
It avoids the chaos that we witnessed in 2017 during President Trump's first term when he announced a travel ban and it took effect immediately. And people who are already airborne traveling to the US were then caught up in that situation, many of them detained at the airport. The fact that there is an advance notice this time means that those chaotic scenes may be avoided. People who also have permanent residency and green cards have also been exempted from the current ban.
Recapping the top story, a female runner who was reported missing yesterday after completing the Comrades Marathon has been found in a critical condition on Point Road in the Durban CBD. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply. 13 Southern African nations and North African guests, Morocco, will battle it out for the ultimate glory in the Hollywood Bets COSAFA Cup 2025 in Mangaung, Bloemfontein. Catch the beautiful game on SABC Plus, SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC 1 from 4 to 15 June. Stay tuned to SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
SAFM invites young people between the ages of 18 to 35 to take over the airwaves this Youth Month. All you have to do is send a WhatsApp voice note or text message to 061 410 4107 or email info@safm.co.za. Tell us which show you'd like to co-host and what youth-focused issues the G20 should incorporate ahead of the summit. And we could be calling you. Terms and conditions apply.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
This is Cathy. I want to see something today. After Mnisi, Advocate Mnisi attended Comrades Marathon yesterday and finishing on 10 hours, he was able to drive back to Joburg and attend the case. Otherwise, the judge is going to kill him real death. Thank you for a nice show.
Cathy, I don't have pay TV, and I tried to watch the Comrades yesterday, and all I got was episode 59472 of Bold and the Beautiful. Did SAPC broadcast the Comrades, or where are you getting all this information about the Comrades from? Mike Islanen.
Cathy, morning, this is in Bloemfontein. We are far away from being a borderless continent. We are a struggling continent. Countries are trying to establish themselves. They are trying to be economical, viable, and so it is not at the moment. It's not something that is wise to have a borderless country. Look at South Africa at the moment. The impact of illegal foreigners to this country. We are struggling as it is now. We have come to the point where we have to share the little that we have with other people from other countries. The unemployment in South Africa is very high. So we are struggling.
Morning, Cathy. One of your sister radio station callers were concurring with the judge, saying that they even have no confidence on black advocates. Few of them that are good, like Advocate Toby, Machova, and Skakane, and few others, because they've got no respect in front of the South African citizens. They lambast each other so that they want to win the crowd instead of focusing on their cases. Thank you, Cathy.
Hello, Cathy. I hear gender-based violence and abuse for women. But now I think this problem continues because we're not solving it because we are one-sided about it. Yes, men are violent physically towards women. But now, when we address the physical abuse of women, we must also address the issue of emotional abuse by women to men. We hardly ever talk about that thing. It must also be talked about to see how women, you say men stop. The women must stop abusing men emotionally, telling them this kind and this, you are useless, blah, 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 blah. It must also be condemned.
Hi, Cathy. Furthermore, I think that one of the major issues and amongst the pillars that seek to address gender-based violence and femicide issues in this country is economic freedom for people. As long as there is so much struggle financially and economically and lack of economic participation for most of us, it will be very difficult to control issues of gender-based violence, because the more people are unemployed, the more we have desperation in our families, in our society, just to survive, and that breeds serious social ills. Thank you.
Good morning, Sis Cathy and the listeners of SAFM. GBV is a pandemic. We need to stand together against it, men and women. But women are the majority. They're supposed to be the ones that are marching every day and forcing the government to change the laws. These laws of South Africa are not working. They are not working at all. Every day, women is being raped or is being hijacked. We really need to change the laws. They're not working.
All right. Thanks for those WhatsApp voice notes that you've sent throughout the show, responding to the different conversations. And you heard there towards the end the conversation that we had in the 10 o'clock hour, focusing on gender-based violence and the high rates of femicide in our country. Well, our final conversation then for this morning takes us to Nigeria, where General Christopher Musa, who is the Chief of Defense Staff, has proposed the complete fencing of the nation's borders with its four neighbors. The suggestion is seen as a drastic measure which is aimed at curbing the influx of armed groups and tackling escalating insecurity across that particular country. Now, this marks the first time that such a public statement has been made by a high-ranking Nigerian official. Let's listen to this audio, which is taken from a security conference that took place in Abuja, and this is where General Musa made these comments.
Border management is very critical. I've had countries, because of the level of insecurity they had to fence their borders. I know sometimes when you mention, people say, no, it's impossible. Pakistan fenced 1,350 kilometer border with Afghanistan. That was the only time they had peace. Saudi Arabia and Iraq, 1,400 kilometers fenced completely. Can we start thinking of fencing our borders? We have 1,500 kilometers with Niger Republic, 1,900 kilometers with Cameroon. Chad is there. All over us, surrounded by Francophone countries, and the Sahel is heating up. If we don't do anything, when the Sahel falls, it is Nigeria that everybody is interested in. Because they believe Nigeria is huge, Nigeria is big, Nigeria is rich. And that is what we should start thinking about. How do we secure fully and take control of our borders? It is critical for our survival. It is critical for our sovereignty.
All right, so that was Christopher Musa then making those comments. We're going to get straight into our conversation after this quick break.
Gordon Ramsay is back, and your favorite kitchen disasters are still somehow in business. New season, same confused chefs, terrifying walk-ins, and enough grease to fry your Wi-Fi. Watch as Gordon tries to fix the unfixable with nothing but sheer rage, British sarcasm, and an iron stomach. Kitchen Nightmares Season 8, Wednesdays at 6 p.m. on S3. Come for the food, stay for the emotional damage.
They say sharing is caring, but not in football. Bafana Bafana and Club M refuse to share points. They're both hunting for vital points. This is the Hollywood Bets South Cup 2025. Catch the spectacular action of Southern African football. South Africa versus Mauritius. This Tuesday, 10 June at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC One. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Hashtag SAFM Talking Point.
We continue the conversation on the talking point, staying then with the question of Nigeria and the proposal made by the Chief of Defense and Chief of Staff, Defense Staff in that country about the country building up borders, building up a fence between itself and its four neighbors. And we welcome onto the show Charles Azigbu, who is a fellow of Nigerian Economic Summit Group. Charles, good morning.
Hello.
Hi, Charles.
Yeah, good morning. I can hear you.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Please hang 10 as I introduce our other guest, Dr. Samuel Oyewole. Good morning to you. You're a research fellow at the University of Pretoria. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
And Professor Mbegezeli Mkhize, Associate Professor of International and Diplomacy Studies at the Thabo Mbeki African School of Public and International Affairs. Professor Mkhize, good morning to you.
Good morning, Cathy, and good morning to the SAFM listeners, and thank you for having me.
Charles, let me begin with you and perhaps ask you to give us a bit of context. When we look at the proposal that has been made,
Hi.
All right.
Yeah, good morning. I can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, it looks like we have a bit of a delay with Charles's line. I'm going to see if we can't dial him back so that we're able to deal with that. So Samuel, let me then move over to you again. Also, for setting context, when we look at the comments that have been made by General Musa, this is of course a country that has been dealing with a military that has been very stretched. You have a 16-year insurgency, particularly in the northeast. They've been fighting the likes of your Boko Haram, your Islamic State, West Africa province, etc., etc. So what context should these comments be seen in? Or rather, let me rephrase, what is it that Nigeria has been facing as a country that would lead it to have such a proposal as something on the table to contend with?
Thank you for that question. I think if we are to trace the context of this particular statement, we need to look at the security architecture and threat that the country is faced with. As you have earlier mentioned, the country has been confronted with the challenges of Boko Haram insurgency in the northeastern part of the country and the Islamic State for about 16 years now. Beyond that, in the northwestern part of the country, the threat of armed banditry is becoming alarming in the last decade. In addition to that, we have issue of arms smuggling, smuggling of weapons, smuggling of drugs, as well as human trafficking along the border. So all these are issues of concern for security architecture of the country. In addition to that, we have issue of economic sabotage and smuggling in relation to the petroleum products. And that's one of the major issues that has actually undermined Nigerian economic policy to subsidize the petroleum for its population. For many years, the country has subsidized petroleum products like petrol, as well as diesel and kerosene and many other byproducts. And as a result of that, many smugglers are specialized in the act of transporting these subsidized products to the neighboring community countries. Niger, Chad, Cameroon, because these products are more cheaper in Nigeria because of government subsidy compared to neighboring countries. So this security and economic context has actually forced the country to realize the need to improve or step up its border management. Beside that, Nigeria have over 4,000 kilometer border with 4 countries, and out of this, the country have identified identify loophole or illegal entry into Nigeria was officially stated to be 3,690 illegal entry point into the country. So if the country is to manage the existing legal entries, and these illegal entries will require stretching the security institution team, because to manage 3,690 illegal entry into the country will require thousands, if not close to hundreds of thousands of personnel to man all those areas. So I think what the General Musa was trying to state is that there's a need to minimize this illegal entry or to curb this illegal entry and retain the legal entry for immigrants to come into the country. Most, except for Cameroon, most other countries that surround Nigeria and recently Niger are members of ECOWAS, especially Benin Republic. So visa is not required to enter Nigeria from Benin Republic. And there's a number of agreements that make it easier for immigrants to enter from this country. However, the concern around illegal entry and security concern around arms trafficking and movement of insurgents, because in most cases, and the issue around the border is one of the major reasons why Boko Haram terrorism and insurgency endure for that long. Because when these guys are not capable of facing the military, they cross the border. And now Nigeria is facing major challenges with in its relation with Niger Republic. So hot pursuit of insurgents across the border is no longer possible. So these are concerns that surround the security architecture of the country that necessitated that kind of statement. So, in my opinion.
Prof. Mkhize, do you agree?
Yes. Good morning, Cathy, once again, and to my dear colleague at the University of Pretoria. I agree, especially in terms of, remember, the issue of border control is not only unique to Nigeria, but it's the issue that has become so serious in Africa as a continent. Our borders have become so porous that you need to find a way to manage them. But what I find more striking in the general's comment regarding the issue of curbing insurgent activities in Nigeria is that he's making reference to Afghanistan, Saudi Arabia, and Pakistan as case studies where the issue of border fencing was successful in terms of managing a dispute inside the borders. But what we should remember is that when we try to fix challenges, we know that there is no one size fits all approach. It may have worked in those countries. Remember that the environment in those countries and the environment in Africa is totally different. Africa is facing a unique set of challenges, like corruption is one of them. So meaning if we are not trying to work harder in terms of curbing corruption, we may not succeed. And if you check some of the challenges, these are basically human security challenges where even the public or the militant groups are formed because of lack of state presence. People are poor, and I agree with the general, because if you look at the countries around Nigeria, like your Sahel region, your Chad, all the countries that are there are all unstable at the moment. But if you check, if you take the military approach, the security approach alone, without improving the well-being of the citizens on the ground, you may not win the war against insurgent or terrorist activities. Because if you check, most of them, they are the results of unemployment, poverty, and also crime. And if you check, for example, in the Sahel region, those people don't even have access to education. So without access to education, because there is instability in the country, obviously you may not be able to find employment. So if the state intervenes using its statecraft, the military, the police, and so on, yes, you are able to protect your borders, but the challenge is you are not addressing the root cause. Because the root cause here is the human security challenges, that the civilians are suffering, the civilians are being killed, the civilians are being displaced. So in my view, and also in support of my dear colleague at the University of Pretoria, is to, if I were the general, I would have maybe considered a two-pronged approach where I talk to the civil society in my country, I talk to government to say, here is the challenge. How can we go about solving it? Because if you use a one-pronged approach, like the military approach, you may not succeed. You need an approach that will seek to, on the one hand, address security challenges, and on the other hand, ensure that the well-being of citizens on the ground is well taken care of. I will pause here for now.
I'm just thinking, Dr. Mkhize, about how much of what you have said in as far as the internal challenges that some of these countries are facing are very much things that we in South Africa can resonate with, right? But what does that then do for the kind of solutions that we're coming up with on a country-to-country basis in the midst of these challenges? And I wonder to what extent the proposal coming out of Nigeria is also an indication of the worsening of what are security risks and vulnerabilities that individual countries are having to contend with, while, of course, they're dealing with all of these societal issues.
Yes, I think what the proposal is saying to us is that you would recall also South Africa also tried to erect a fence in Beit Bridge to prevent the Zimbabweans from entering the country. But look at what happened. That fence was destroyed. The quality of the fence that was erected was not up to standard. But if you look at countries that the general mentioned, those countries in terms of technology and in terms of their economies, for instance, Saudi Arabia, the economy is relatively stable there. In fact, it's a rich country. The country is self-reliant. Whereas if you come to us in Africa, we are still grappling with very basic challenges. So what I'm trying to say is, when we try to come up with viable solutions, it's better to compare apples with apples than to compare apples with oranges. Because if you look at the economy of Saudi Arabia, for example, that economy is stable. It's relatively strong as compared to our countries. But the other issue...
Okay, Prof, I'm going to ask you just to hold that thought right there. I'll give you a chance to conclude it in a moment. It's 11:30, time for your latest headlines.
Thank you, Cathy. Good morning. I'm Kulofelo Tefo. In the headlines this hour, the Supreme Court of Appeal has dismissed with cost the Home Affairs Minister's bid to appeal the interim relief granted to the Zimbabwe Immigration Federation. A female runner who was reported missing yesterday after completing the Comrades Marathon has been found in a critical condition on Point Road in the Durban CBD. And Lordsburg Pass and N9 Road between Graf Reinet and Middelburg in the Eastern Cape has been closed to traffic as snow continues to grow thicker on the road. I'll have details of this and other stories at 12.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
You're listening to The Talking Point. We're looking at the latest coming out of Nigeria and a proposal then from the Chief of Staff of Defense around building a fence across the Nigerian border. This is with its 4 neighboring countries in a bid to deal with the escalating security threats and vulnerabilities that it has identified that are coming through the border. Joining us this morning, Dr. Samuel Oyewole, who is a research fellow at University of Pretoria. He's also a lecturer at the Federal University of Oye Ekiti in Nigeria. Professor Mbegezeli Mkhize is an associate professor of international and diplomacy studies at the Thabo Mbeki African School of Public and International Affairs. Charles Asigbo, unfortunately, we've had to let him go because the connection to him is simply not holding up. But we're looking forward to hearing his insights too. Prof. Mkhize, before we went to news, you were still talking to us about the approach that Nigeria is taking and what this tells us about the emerging issues, the contemporary issues that countries are having to grapple with on a day-to-day basis.
Yes, absolutely. And if you recall, the other issue that I was also going to add, in addition to what the colleague from UP indicated, is the issue of weak intelligence agencies that we have as a continent. Because remember, the role of intelligence is to detect and prevent these issues before they even occur. But even we don't even have a strong mechanisms or state capacity to deal with. Remember, the financing of terrorist activities. It's either formal or informal. It's even the civil society groups, the charity organizations. So we can't detect who's financing this because we don't have technologically advanced capacity to address these issues. So I think if we can invest a lot of efforts on improving our intelligence services so that they are better equipped to detect and advise the government or the security forces on these issues, I think it could also help. And also to improve state capacity in terms of identifying transactions that can be suspicious. Because you can't build a fence and yet you don't stop the financing of these terrorist activities. If you don't stop the financing, it will continue. So that is my question when I was saying, if we adopt a one-pronged approach, I don't think it may yield the results that we need. We need a differentiated approach where we improve our intelligence services. We also improve state capacity in terms of identifying transactions that may be suspicious, that are financing these activities, and also address the issues on the ground, the well-being of citizens, what pushes them to engage in these activities.
Thanks for that, Prof. Mkhize. Samuel, if one then has to go back to the idea of a borderless Africa, right, where you have one passport, it gets you everywhere you may want to go onto the continent. Again, these emerging issues seem to be having a very real effect on that idea that perhaps we're even further off from a borderless Africa in 2025 than we were 15, 20 years ago.
Okay. Thank you for that question. In my opinion, I've always been an advocate of a borderless Africa and single passport and something around flexible immigration within the continent. However, that's not a basis for to lose guard in managing national border. Even in Europe, with EU, which is considered to be one of the most successful regional organizations globally, we can still see cases of border fencing between some and among some European countries. One example is the Austria-Italian border that was fenced. Certain part of that border were fenced in 2016. in between France and UK in between 2015 and 2021. So for areas that were considered to be hotspots, I think it may be a policy consideration to actually fence and minimize illegal entrants. Even with borderless Africa, anyone can move from one part of Africa to another, but it has to be documented. It has to be legal. And again, it minimizes the prospect of criminal group and insurgent group exploiting national borders to perpetrate crisis in the neighboring countries. Regulating this border, or the idea of fencing, will be to just minimize point of entries and leave open legal point of entries for people to come in and go out legally. But to manage more than 3,000 entries with the kind of facility and funding that is available to Nigeria and many other African countries, that would be quite challenging. And even when we talk about issue of intelligence require technical capacity. And for now, Africa does not have a constellation of satellites that can always help us to monitor our boundaries and our territory. And because of that, this country may need to install cameras and so many other things to track illegal entry. And that will require certain demarcation at different points where they can host some of this equipment to track illegal entries. In the light of the number of identified illegal entries in the country, I think that is a policy consideration. Meanwhile, it is a policy proposal, not adopted policy of government at this point. So, and again, I agree with Prof on the issue of intelligence, and I agree with him on the policy, on the idea of welfare in Nigeria and then other African countries. There's a need for government across the continent to prioritize human development and welfare of their citizens, to minimize the incentive for criminal activities, transborder crime, and the rest of them. However, these are issues for the government, not for the military. So the military will have to prioritize what makes their work better. And issue of civil affairs will have to be handled by the government of different African countries. Thank you.
Thanks for that contribution. And in fact, you're leading us to where the final phase of our conversation will focus, which also sometimes seems to be the elephant in the room. The governance, the state of governance, and how it contributes to this insecurity. We'll continue with the conversation shortly.
Every murder has a moment when it could have been stopped. Countdown to Murder takes you inside the chilling timeline from ordinary days to unthinkable crimes. Real stories, real people, and the final hours before everything fell apart. Countdown to Murder. Every second tells a story. Thursdays at 9 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
It's a game of two halves represented by two national flags, and both nations are chasing victory to bring joy to their citizens. This is more than just an international friendly. It is the Southern African Derby. Mzansi's Bafana Bafana face the Mambas of Mars. Catch the incredible action of African football. South Africa versus Mozambique on Tuesday, 10 June at 7 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and S3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Hashtag SAFM Talking Point.
Well, we're rounding off our conversation with Dr. Oyewole and Professor Mkhize, looking at the proposal coming out of Nigeria to build a fence around its borders in response to the insecurity situation that it's facing and vulnerabilities that it's facing as a country. Prof. Mkhize, I alluded to the elephant in the room, And you raised this earlier, that there are a number of issues at a society level that are leading to the escalating insecurity on the continent. Do you think that there's an acknowledgement of that? Do you think that there's a calling out of it and even a push for individual countries to address what is happening within their borders because of the impact it has not only on neighboring countries, but also the impact that it has on an entire region?
Absolutely. I think I said it earlier that the elephant in the room, like you've rightfully pointed out, is the issue of governance, which is very weak. Corruption is very high. There is lack of transparency and accountability. But I want to make one example, citing the example that Dr. Mayoral mentioned, the issue of small arms and light weapons. Remember, the AU has been calling for silencing of guns. First, it was 2020, and then it shifted the target to the right. And where we are now, we are very far from achieving that objective of silencing the gun by now. I think it's now 2030, because initially it was silencing the guns by 2030, which 2020, which has already passed. So in other words, we are not pulling in one direction as the leadership at a government level or at a civil society level and so on. So the issue here is the leadership and making sure that the needs of the citizens are met, so that the citizen doesn't get frustrated, the citizens doesn't take up arms and try to call for the removal of government, like we've seen in the Sahel, to say this government is ineffective, let's remove it and find another alternative way of managing. That is the serious issue that we are confronting as Africans. What we are having, however, we do have the structures that are needed to manage all these issues. For instance, we do have the African Charter on Elections, Governance and Democracy, which spells out how countries should manage their elections, how they should manage their affairs. We also do have the African peer review mechanisms, which also spell out how countries should govern their affairs. But despite the fact that we have these structures, it's hard to deal with the elephant in the room. I must confess. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for that. Sam, do you maybe have one last thing to contribute very shortly before we wrap it up?
Okay, I think, in my opinion, just like what Prof have said earlier, I think the emphasis should be on governance. We place less emphasis on governance in Africa and place more emphasis on security. The people that are involved in criminal activities, many of them would have take different paths to life if they have the opportunity. So the emphasis should be on governance, how to minimize corruption in governance across the continent and improve quality well-being and quality of life of an average citizen on the continent. And I think this will actually go a long way to resolve many of the crises that we are facing across the continent. Thank you.
Thank you both for coming onto the show, your contributions to this conversation, Dr. Samuel Oyewole and Professor Mbegezeli Mkhize. That brings us to the end of the show for this Monday morning on The Talking Point. We're back with you again tomorrow between 9 o'clock and midday. Up next is the book reading.
The land is their legacy, but in season 3 of Yellowstone, that legacy is under fire. Kevin Costner returns as John Dutton, fighting to protect his ranch, his family, and everything that can't be bought. More enemies, deeper betrayal, and the battle for the West, it's only just begun. Yellowstone Season 3. This land was won with blood, and it'll take more to keep it. Saturdays at 9:30. Starts 24 May, only on S3. Open up.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
What percentage of these schools, these initiation schools, are effectively illegal or illegitimate and they needed to be shut down? What would you think?
My brother, you cannot have a percentage because some will be opening for the first time as we are going to the winter season. That is why we're saying a school that will not have been registered will not be allowed to operate.
The Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Valenkosi Tlabisa.
Ashraf Gada on SAFM. Find the podcast at safm.co.za.
The book reading. Please note that the views expressed in this book are not that of the station. Listeners' discretion is advised. SAFM presents another episode of the book Winning the Money Game, a guide to financial well-being by Mlamuli Mbambo, read by Samson Kumalo.
What makes you happy? A few things makes me happy. Watching my favorite TV shows, chatting with my friends, and partying. There are people making money from creating TV shows, apps, and platforms for chatting. And there are people making money when people party, such as event organizers, musicians, sound hire people, and many others. Although I enjoy these things, I do not think I want to work in those industries. Perhaps I need to ask the question in a different way. What productive activity would you not mind doing for free because it makes you happy? I do enjoy public speaking. When I was part of the presenter team in my university society, I really enjoyed it. Being a public speaker has the potential to be a lucrative business. Imagine making millions as a speaker, doing something that you love and getting paid a lot for it. It sounds too good to be true, Mkulu. It is not. If there are speakers that are millionaires and you love being a speaker, then it is plausible that you can become a millionaire doing it. You can study their blueprint on how they got to become millionaires as speakers. Their blueprint would serve as a good way to start your path to emulate their success and maybe even surpassing them by adding your aromat to the blueprint. I laughed at the aromat analogy, which was basically Mkulu's way of saying you should add your own spice. The quickest way to retire is to do something you love. When you wake up in the morning to pursue something you love, it really does not feel like work. I'm not saying you will not work hard, but as you work hard on your vocation, it will be fulfilling instead of draining. There is a magical thing that I cannot explain about the joy that comes from doing what you love and seeing your dream becoming a reality. One of the most important things you can do for yourself is to know what you love doing and plan how you will do it for a living. You can start with a job you have secured and learn from it, but always keep in mind what is your vocation and how you will be doing it one day. You could also find your vocation within your job or find a job that allows you to work on your vocation. You might be too young for me to tell you that in chasing the money, do not forget family and friends. This is also very important. Just being rich is not that fulfilling. As a teacher, my calling was about teaching others the skills they need to reach their dreams. Some people do not help others because they have a scarcity mindset. The truth is, opportunity and money are abundant. Helping others attain wealth does not decrease your wealth. It could actually increase it because you could also work with those people as business partners. I will stop here because I know that most people do not understand this in their youth. Just keep it in the back of your mind for now. I think I understand. You are saying that it is not only about making a lot of money, but also about having good relationships and helping others. That is right. There is a false narrative that most wealthy people are selfish. Whereas if you were to scrutinize these assumptions, you would find that most wealthy people do a lot and give a lot to help others. I donate my time and money to several charities, but I do not make a noise about it. So you may think I only spend my money on myself. I want you to be a wealthy man that has significance, consciousness, and makes a good mark in this world. Gogo called us to the kitchen for lunch. As we were eating, I realized that in just a few days, Mkulu and Gogo had changed my view about money and success. There is an adage that says, elders are like the stars in the sky that remain still and can guide youth like how stars guide ships. I was very lucky to have two big stars like my grandparents. With their guidance, I was sure I could reach any goal I desired. Wisdom only comes with reflection. If a child shoots an arrow that reaches the top of a tall palm tree, then it must be that an elderly person carved the arrow for them. Nigerian proverb. As we were finishing our lunch, Mkulu said, I have a surprise for you. What is it, Mkulu? I cannot tell you. I will show you later. Since you are leaving this evening, I think we should go out and do something fun. I might not have done what would seem fun during this visit, but I think the conversation we've had taught me a lot more important things than just having fun. I know those conversations and lessons will make my life a lot more fun and meaningful as I grow into an adult. Thank you for those kind words, but I think we should just have fun today. I called my friends at the Kyalami racetrack and said we would be coming there to do a few laps. Sounds like real fun. Thank you so much. Are you a good driver? Yes, I am. I'm not sure if I trust your driving skills, but we shall see. Walking down to the garage, I wondered which car Mkulu would choose that day. My heart jumped when the lights of the Audi R8 went on. I see you like the choice of car today. I do. You always travel in the Audi A6. On most days, I prefer the Audi A6 because it is not loud and does not draw attention. But today is the day for fun and racing, so the Audi R8 must come out to play. I got in the Audi R8 and it really was a marvel and it took off on the road. You were right. Everyone's looking. Mkulu was speeding a bit on the freeway, yet the car was steady, and it felt like we were traveling at normal speed. As we arrived at the racetrack, I saw a few cars speeding on the track. The racetrack manager showed us where we could change into the right gear for racing. He asked me if I thought I could beat Mkulu. I told him I did not know, since I had never been on a racetrack, but I doubted it because it looked like Mkulu had been there many times. The racetrack manager took us to the car garage and said we could choose any car. It was a dream car garage. There were Lamborghinis, Aston Martins, Ferraris, and other sports cars. Since I'm James Bond, I'm taking the Aston Martin DB9, joked Mkulu. I was confused and did not know which car to choose. I asked the racetrack manager which car was likely to be the Aston Martin. The manager suggested that I take the Ferrari Spider, and I followed his advice. Getting in the Ferrari was an unbelievable feeling. I pressed the accelerator, and the engine responded with a loud roar. A lion was definitely under the hood. Do you want to make a bet on our race? Asked Mkhulu. No ways. I've never raced before. I have no idea how good you are, and judging from how well the racetrack manager knows you, I assume you are here often. We got to the starting line, and the race began. I pressed the full throttle. My car responded powerfully, and I got ahead of Mkhulu. I was enjoying the power and speed of the Ferrari. We got to a bend, and I slowed down a lot in order to make the turn. That was when Mkhulu passed me with ease, as he didn't slow down much at the bend. I guess this is where experience trumps pure speed. As the race continued, on the straight stretches, I got close to catching up. But he opened a gap every time we got to the bends. On the third lap, Mkhulu was still ahead, and he won, although I was not too far behind. Congratulations, Mzukulu. Your driving was not bad for a first-timer on the track with such a powerful car. Thank you, Mkhulu. This was really fun. I think when I get older, I want to own this Ferrari.
That was another episode of Winning the Money Game, a guide to financial well-being, written by Mlamuli Mbambo, read by Samson Khumalo. The book is available online on www.sabooksonline.co.za. It is broadcast on SAFM at 11:45 Monday to Thursdays on The Talking Point. It is produced for the station by Vovi Patala, read by Samson Khumalo, technical production Wiseman Manqele, Nanda Khoza, and Tato Mapurum.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Leading the conversation.
It's 12 o'clock on Monday, the 9th of June, 2025. A very warm welcome to Updated Noon here in SAFM. Leading the conversation, I'm John Gericke in for Sakina Kamwendo. Coming up in this hour.
I wish to apologize for being a racist. I'll try and mend my ways, but I can tell you, it's not a conscious thing about me to be a racist.
As Judge Cathy Mohlahlana in the Senzo Meyiwa trial, he's apologized for his alleged racist utterances in the Pretoria High Court.
How the runner got here is unknown. However, with the weather, even now and last night, it didn't assist her after her marathon, and she was found in a critical condition.
Female runner who vanished after completing the Comrades Marathon has been found, and we'll also be focusing on that weather in KwaZulu-Natal. Share your views with us, 41391, charged at R1.50 in SMS. You can call us on 086 000 2032 or WhatsApp voice note on 082 692 3909. Post your comments on Twitter or Facebook at SABC News_radio, and you can reach us on X using the hashtag #UpdateAtNoon. That and plenty more coming up in the next hour in this edition of Updated Noon. Let's get your latest news first with Kulafelo Tefo.
Thank you, John. Top stories this hour. SCA rejects Home Affairs appeal in ZEP case, and N9 closed due to snowfall in the Eastern Cape. Good afternoon. The Supreme Court of Appeal has dismissed with cost the Home Affairs Minister's bid to appeal the interim relief granted to the Zimbabwe Immigration Federation. ZIF represents more than 1,000 holders of the Zimbabwean exemption permit. This follows the June 2023 Pretoria High Court judgment that granted the ZIF an interim interdict which restrains government respondents from detaining or deporting any holder of a ZEP. Ditaba Tsotetsi reports. reports.
The decision on whether to terminate the Zimbabwean exemption permit is before the current Minister of Home Affairs. This after the Helen Suzman Foundation successfully challenged the decision in court. The ZEP is currently valid until 28th November 2025. In order for the minister to fulfill the duty placed on him by the Gauteng High Court to consult the affected ZEP holders and all other stakeholders on the future of the current dispensation. Dita Bosotezi, SABC News.
A female runner who was reported missing yesterday after completing the Comrades Marathon has been found in a critical condition on Point Road in the Durban CBD. ALS spokesperson Gareth Jamieson says she was reported missing. Wide-scale search was then launched.
Just an update for the missing runner that has been located near the NSRI base on Point Road in the Durban Central area. The Necker 91 aeromedical helicopter has been activated to rapidly transport the critically injured runner through to a nearby hospital for the urgent care that she requires. Point Road has been closed off by SAPS and Metro Police and awaiting arrival of the Necker 91 helicopter.
The cross-examination of Lukhanyo Calata has wrapped up in the Gqeberha High Court, where the inquest into the deaths of Craddock 4 continues. The process seeks to establish who was responsible for the 1985 abduction and murder of anti-apartheid activists Matthew Goniwe, Fort Calata, Sicelo Mhlauli and Spiro Mkhonto. During cross-examination, Advocate Yap Silius, representing 3 former apartheid-era police officers, questioned Calata on the relevance of his testimony, given that he was only 3 years old at the time of the killings. Calata acknowledged he has no personal knowledge of the events, but insisted that the documents and records he presented are critical to uncovering the truth. His mother, Nomonde Calata, has now taken the stand. Still in court, the high-profile SASSA fraud case is back in the spotlight. After months of delays and legal wrangling, court proceedings are set to resume tomorrow and Wednesday at the Lenasia Magistrates Court. Lopang Alamu takes a closer look at what to expect.
The long-running SASSA fraud case, involving allegations of the multi-million rand misappropriation of social grants, is scheduled to resume this week with the continuation of the bail application. Several former SASSA officials and their accomplices stand accused of orchestrating a sophisticated scheme to defraud the agency. Among the accused are former senior managers within SASSA who allegedly exploited their positions to divert funds into ghost accounts. The National Prosecuting Authority says it is now ready to present critical witness testimony which could prove pivotal to the state's case. Lopang Alamu, SABC News, Johannesburg.
And finally, in the Eastern Cape, Lordsburg Pass, an N9 road between Graafrenet and Middelburg has been closed to traffic as snow continues to grow thick on the road. This as provincial authorities continue to urge motorists to exercise extreme caution as snowfall has been reported on the Waphasberg Pass along the R61 between Nguba and Graafrenet. Provincial transport spokesperson Unati Bingose says they are closely monitoring more roads that remain open.
Keeping a close eye on that one as there is snowfall. Buckley Pass is another one that often gives us problems, and so is Nikomalan Pass, but those passes remain open to traffic. But despite the fact that they remain open to traffic, we're urging road users to use them only if it's necessary to do so and approach with caution.
The top story this hour, the Supreme Court of Appeal has dismissed with cost the Home Affairs Minister's bid to appeal the interim relief granted to the Zimbabwean Immigration Federation. Headlines at 12:30 for SAFM News. I'm Kolofelo Defo.
Update at noon, midday to 1 p.m.
6 minutes past 12. Welcome to the show. John in for Sakina. She's off for this week. Coming up, we're going to be focusing on this weather. Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal will focus on a little bit, get an update on what's happening in KZN. I think we'll probably get an update from the Eastern Cape as well. We heard about what was happening in Graafrenet there on that R61. So we'll get an update from the Weather Service about what we can expect over the next few days. Then, one of the big stories that's happened over the weekend, this massive transport contracts in the city of Johannesburg to politically connected families. The Auditor General raising this awareness. City of Johannesburg doesn't see a problem with it and won't be conducting an investigation, which is fascinating because if a flag is raised, investigate it. If there's a problem, then you can fix the problem. If there's no problem, so be it. But we'll get an update on that. We're hoping to get a reporter on the city of Johannesburg defending the awarding of these transport contracts. We might get an update from Helen Ziller, news story this weekend as well, that she's weighing the possibility of running for this mayor of the city of Johannesburg. I saw in an article today that her husband says he's not moving. He's going to be staying down in the Cape. So what is the future there? Is this just talk ahead of the elections? And workers of Goodyear, the tyre manufacturing company in Kariga in the Eastern Cape, have expressed shock following the news that the company's initiated a process to restructure, which means that the 900 workers there might be left jobless. So we'll hopefully get an update on that. Plenty more as well. As always, we value your comments, so get involved. We'll play voice notes just after the headlines at 12:30.
After school snacks, a bag of chips or maybe some biscuits, instant noodles for lunch. Ultra-processed products such as these may be high in sugar, salt or saturated fat. Having too much of these products could lead to diabetes, hypertension and heart disease. Our health is in danger. We have the right to know what's in our food. Demand front of package warning labels now. Sign the petition on heala.org. HEALA.org.
What if you open up more? Open up to learning and experiencing more of Mzansi and abroad? What if you open up culture and explore the extraordinary from music to drama and the latest fashion? What if you open up your wild side, discover a world of skyscraping cities and brown sugar beaches? What if you open up your kitchen and immerse yourself in cuisines from all corners of the world? What if you open up your voice with all eyes on you without being seen? What if you open up your morning to lekker conversations and world-class entertainment? What if you open up more?
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
John Gerika on SAFM.
Updated noon on SAFM, 12:10. The Lurtsburg Pass in the N9 between Graaff-Reinet and Middelburg in the Eastern Cape is closed to traffic due to snowfall. Snow is falling over a number of high-lying areas of the Eastern Cape, and traffic authorities also keeping a close eye on the Wappatsberg Pass on the R61 between Kruba and Graaff-Reinet. Cold snaps expected to persist for the next few days. Let's get an overview about these weather conditions. We're joined on the line by weather forecaster at the South African Weather Services, Lehlohonolo Tobelo. Lehlohonolo, thank you very much for joining us. Rain in the middle of winter in Johannesburg. What's going on?
Good afternoon, and thanks for the opportunity. Yeah, cut-off low, once it gets to the central interior, it does that. It brings you rain.
What's the weather going to look like over the next few days?
All right, so for the most parts of the eastern areas, we're expecting a scattered to a widespread chance of rain and showers, especially over the Eastern Cape as well as the central and the southern parts of KwaZulu-Natal. These are expected over most parts of the eastern areas up until tomorrow, but it's late into Wednesday. We just have a 30% chance of rain and showers that are expected along the east coast of the Eastern Cape into KwaZulu-Natal. But for between today and tomorrow, that's where we're going to expect we'll receive a lot of the rain that might result into some localized flooding. I mean, we have a number of warnings around the Eastern Cape. Firstly, it was an orange level 5 for significant chance of snow that might be disruptive, especially for the high-lying areas into the northeastern parts of the Eastern Cape, into Barkly East and areas in Drakensberg Mountains that lead to the Lesotho area. In KwaZulu-Natal, a yellow level 2 warning for severe thunderstorms expected later into the evening, which might result in some strong and damaging winds, a possibility of hail over the central parts into the east coast of KwaZulu-Natal, which might also result in some heavy downpours that lead to localized flooding. For the southern parts of Free State, we're expecting cold temperatures. That might also be part of the reason why we will also have a possibility of snow over the southern grounds of the Free State, just around Alwan North into the extreme eastern parts of Bloemfontein. We're expecting cold temperatures. So for today and tomorrow, we're still expecting the rain, but once we get to Wednesday, we're going to start seeing a development of just temperatures picking up, not so much, but they might get to our winter temperatures, especially for the eastern parts. In Gauteng, a 30% chance of rain and showers is expected between today into tomorrow. Tomorrow is mainly over the southern parts of Gauteng, but cold temperatures are expected, especially overnight into early morning tomorrow. That will be probably our coldest day since the winter started over Gauteng.
Lehlonolo, do we just have short memories, or is this something special for winter?
No, I mean, once you have a cold front as well as a cut-off low, these are the conditions that you have to expect. Yes, the seasonal forecast suggests above normal temperatures for countrywide, generally in winter. However, we're going to have extreme cold spells in day-to-day, depending on the weather system that is affecting the country. So if you have a cold front, a cut-off low, and a high-pressure system region behind the cold front that is quite cold, we might result in conditions like what we're speaking about today.
Okay, so very cold winter, but then winter after that from Wednesday.
Yeah, so from Wednesday evening into Thursday, weather should get to normal winter.
Forecast at the South African Weather Service, Lehlonolo Tobela. Thank you very much.
Thanks, brother man. Have a blessed one.
Update at noon, midday to 1 p.m.
13 minutes past 12. Judge Cathy Mohlahlana has apologized for his remarks about black legal practitioners. That's after Advocate Charles Nisi requested to be excused on Monday from proceedings in the Senzo Meyiwa trial because he was traveling home after competing in the Comrades Marathon. Mohlahlana says his conduct was incorrect.
I was tutored by people like Thabo Mbeki. He'd be shocked to hear that I'm a racist. So if people say I'm a racist, maybe I'm not aware of that. But if I trampled on anybody's toes because of my racism, despite being an adherent to the Freedom Charter, 1955, I was there in Kliptown with my father. I wish to apologize for being a racist. I'll try and mend my ways, but I can tell you, it's not a conscious thing about me to be a racist. So I apologize. And the gentleman in front of me, if you believe that I, as a judge, I'm so useless, dumb, baluka, moho, etc., and you think you can't get a fair trial from me, please tell me. I will recuse myself. I don't want to impose myself on people who doubt my integrity, honor, and dignity. And I mean it. If you think this judge, the way he's a racist, the way he doesn't care for the Constitution, he's not fit to be our judge, please tell me, and I'll recuse myself. Yeah, so that is the apology. My wife actually said to me, I must apologize even to the people of South Africa. And then I asked him jokingly, even the undocumented foreigners, he says, everybody. So I wish to apologize even to the politicians, because I'm told even politicians are worried about me. They want to summon me to Parliament. Don't know for what. And most graciously, I want to apologize to the Chief Justice Maya, to Chief Justice Zondo, to Chief Justice Mogoeng, and to all these colleagues.
That's Judge Cathy Mohlahlana, who's apologized for his remarks last week.
They say sharing is caring, but not in football. Bafana Bafana and Club M refuse to share points. They're both hunting for vital points. This is the Hollywood Bets COSAFA Cup 2025. Catch the spectacular action of Southern African football. South Africa versus Mauritius. This Tuesday, 10 June at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC One. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. that's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
13 Southern African nations and North African guests, Morocco, will battle it out for the ultimate glory in the Hollywood Bets COSAFA Cup 2025 in Mangaung, Bloemfontein. Catch the beautiful game on SABC Plus, SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC One from 4 to 15 June. Stay tuned to SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Update at noon, midday to 1 p.m.
Let's go to KwaZulu-Natal now. A female runner who was reported missing yesterday after completing the Comrades Marathon has been found. Moira Harding vanished after completing the marathon in Durban yesterday. We're joined on the line now by Gareth Jamison of ALS Paramedics to tell us more. So confirm for me if you can, Gareth, she's been confirmed and she's in a safe place?
Yes, correct. Good morning, good afternoon. She's currently in hospital. She was flown by aeromedical helicopter through after being found this morning in the Point area of Durban.
Can you give us more details of the search process and how she was found?
Sure. So obviously a massive manhunt was launched through family and friends and search and rescue teams from last night, with, obviously following up multiple leads. And then this morning, just around 7 or just after 7, I think when the construction workers actually arrived on site near the jetty at the harbour, they found what is believed to be the missing runner, and obviously alerted all the necessary authorities, who then proceeded out. Obviously we found her in a critical condition. It was raining last night in Durban, so the weather wasn't pleasant either, as well as obviously just having run a full marathon. So she was in a critical condition and obviously stabilized by advanced life support paramedics on the scene. But then obviously with peak hour as well as multiple accidents, and that it was decided to rapidly transfer her by helicopter through to a nearby hospital.
You're a paramedic. Can you explain sort of what goes through, what the human body goes through, having done a Comrades Marathon like that, and then 7 kilometers away from what I understand is where she was found from the finish? Why would somebody do that?
Well, we don't know the pedantics. Obviously, it's still very early, and obviously SAP and the necessary authorities, including obviously the marathon, will investigate. But when it's difficult to say, because if you're running a marathon, your body is, no matter how hard you train, it's still taking a beating. And she could have been confused. She could have been anything as a result of the run. Chemicals in the body, etc. So very difficult. So I think she might have been confused and wandered off. Maybe they were staying in a hotel closer there, or closer to where she was found. It's very difficult to say. But I mean, after a marathon like that, your body has taken a beating, and it's hard to explain the reactions because everyone's different.
Yeah, we'll wait for more facts to come out. Is she doing all right though? She was in a critical condition when she was found.
Yes, correct. So she's still critical but stable, obviously in hospital being treated by the necessary specialists, and her family is also with her as well.
Okay, good news. Thank you very much. Gareth Jamison of ALS Paramedics, thank you very much for joining us. Yeah, we were talking about that in the office today, and often at the end of these long marathons, somebody who's taken part in them was telling us that sometimes when somebody finishes, my mom would use the word, they're in a dwal. You almost have to shake them to make them realize that they're where they are again. Dehydration and the strain is there. So, yeah, hopefully we'll find out more details about how Harding is doing, but she seems okay. So good news to the story.
Update at noon, midday to 1 p.m.
22 minutes past 12, Sports, Arts and Culture Minister Gayton McKenzie has announced a new implementation plan for the collective repatriation of the remains of South African exiles, focusing on SADC countries. McKenzie says the initiative is a moral duty to restore dignity and heal wounds and fix injustices caused by apartheid. McKenzie has made a call to families of liberation heroes who died in exile to come forward.
These initiatives are about rehumanization. They are spiritual. But most importantly, they are necessary. The first one, which is the reburial of Khoi and San ancestral human remains. And while I'm here, I must welcome one of our leaders in the Khoi and San community and fraternity, Chief Petrus Falboy, who has been fighting this fight for recognition to bring back the remains. And it gives me great joy today that a fight that he has been gallantly fighting is coming to the end through victory of all the people that you see here today. So for generations, the remains of South Africa's first people, the Khoi, San, and other indigenous groups were stolen from their graves. These ancestors were treated like objects and as objects. They were displayed in museums, studied in labs, and held in foreign institutions without consent or respect. We are correcting those injustices now. Key actions that we will be taking as the government of national unity, that we will have the reburial of 58 ancestral remains originating from the Northern Cape. Hence, I have my colleague, MEC Matika here. This is being done in full consultation with the communities concerned. The process is led by our implementing partners, Zico Museums of South Africa, SARA, South African Heritage Resource Agency. It is guided by the Northern Cape Reburial Task Team, representing the Nama, Griqua, Korana, and San communities. What this reburial truly means, it is not just about returning the remains to the soil, it is about restoring dignity, it's about fulfilling cultural and spiritual obligations, it's about healing the deep wounds of dispossession, and most importantly, historical erasure.
Sports, Arts and Culture Minister Gayton McKenzie there. It's 25 minutes past 12 o'clock.
Update at noon, midday to 1 p.m.
Democratic Alliance Federal Council Chairperson Helen Zille may consider putting a name forward for running for the Mayor of City of Johannesburg ahead of next year's local government elections. According to the Daily Maverick, the former DA leader and former Premier of the Western Cape Province says she will decide by next week whether to apply for the job as a candidate within the DA who want to be considered to have an application deadline of June the 15th to do so. Zille could potentially be the last hope to save a crumbling city of gold which has been plagued by decaying infrastructure, crime and unemployment, amongst other challenges. Let's talk to Helen Zille now. Ms. Zille, thank you very much for joining us. Can you confirm if you're considering becoming a mayor of the city of Joburg?
Yes, I am absolutely considering, but I've still got to take a decision.
There's a lot to think about. Your family's in Cape Town. I've read reports that your husband won't move up to Joburg. What's going through your mind at the moment?
Well, I'm weighing all of these things up. You know, I am very committed to Johannesburg. I was born there. I grew up there. I owe Joburg a lot, and I love Joburg a lot. And it makes me feel very sad when I see what's happening to Johannesburg. I know what an enormous amount of work it's going to be to stop the rot and start turning it around, put it that way. It's going to be an enormously difficult job. And I'm just got to think whether I really want to take on this job now.
What's motivating you to do it?
Well, South Africa can't work unless Johannesburg works. It's as simple as that. Johannesburg is South Africa's economic heartland, and it needs to work to attract investment, growth, and jobs. And the most crucial thing we need in South Africa is jobs, but nobody's going to invest where you don't get reliable services, where water doesn't come out of taps, where the lights don't go on when you switch them on, where you can't transport anything on the roads. And unless we get that right, we're not going to have investment, which is necessary for growth and jobs. And we've got to fix that crisis in South Africa. We've got to get people out of poverty. And the only way you can get them out of poverty sustainably is through jobs.
As the Federal Council chairperson, why would you want to be the mayor of the DA? Where are the mayor of Joburg? Where are the other DA candidates?
Well, I hope they're all applying. You know, in the DA, we don't coronate people. We select people in a very rigorous process. And I hope a lot of people are applying and putting their hat in the ring. And I hope if I do decide to do that, they'll give me a run for my money.
There were reports that there were some business leaders that were asked to take the job. They turned it down for time and money.
Well, the bottom line is that you've got to make being mayor of Joburg, if you were to get it, a full-time job. I mean, that's a whole-time job, not even a full-time job. It's 24/7. So that's a whole-time job. And I've been headhunting for a year, and we had some success, and those people are in the pool, so they will have applied, and we are going to see if they get it. If they get it, then they're obviously the best candidates, and that would be great. And there's some others who've said they don't see their way clear to doing it because they can't afford to do it at the rate that a mayor gets paid.
Would you back some young DA upstarts who thinks they could do the job?
Well, I would certainly back them applying, of course.
Right.
I mean, we want competition. And I hope anybody who wants to do the job will apply and convince the selection panel and do a good presentation and get through all of the hoops that you have to go through.
All right. Talk us through that process. How does the DA select the candidate to stand for DA mayor?
Well, everyone has to apply, and the deadline is actually this Friday, not next Friday, as you said in the introduction, but that doesn't matter. It's just a date. And people apply, and then there is a screening panel that has, I think it's 8 criteria that they weigh the candidate against. And these are quite tough criteria because if you're going to be a mayor, you've got to know what you're doing. So you have to have experience, you have to have a range of things that actually contribute to your capacity to do it. But experience is something that young people can get. I mean, look at Chris Pappas, look at Jordan Hill-Lewis. They're very young. They were very young when they became mayors, but they'd built experience over the years for quite a long time, and they understood the politics and they understood the context. So if you get through the screening panel, then you get invited for an assessment. Then you get a topic that you have to make a presentation on. Then you are grilled on the presentation, and then there are unseen questions, unprepared questions in 6 categories that you have to answer.
And the opposition are already making noises when that news report came out that you were contemplating becoming the mayor of Johannesburg. What do you have to say to them?
Of course there are going to be noises. I mean, this is politics. I've got a huge target on my back. I'm completely used to it. I would be amazed and worried if people weren't criticizing me already.
Are you up for it? You're up for the old foes like Herman Mashaba?
Oh, I'm always up for anything. I mean, Herman just plays the race card. He doesn't take the arguments seriously.
We're going to leave it there. DA Federal Council Chairperson Helen Zille, thank you very much. What do you make of that? Give us a call, or you can send us a voice note as well. We'll play those voice notes after news headlines at 12:30.
Good afternoon. In the headlines, the Sawa judge Cathy Mohlahlana has apologized for his utterances that had racial undertones during the Senzo Meyiwa murder case in the Pretoria High Court. The Supreme Court of Appeal has dismissed with cost the Home Affairs Minister's bid to appeal the interim relief granted to the Zimbabwe Immigration Federation. And beyond our borders, preparations are underway for the funeral service of former Zambian President Edgar Lungu. I'll have details of this and other stories at 1.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Let's get an update on the market this afternoon with FNB investment analyst Sitimbele Bopela. Thank you very much for joining us, Sitimbele. What's happening?
Hi, thank you for having me. We're seeing the JSE perform quite well so far this morning. We opened in the black and we've been trading firmer so far. Green screens, except for financials, which are trading in the red. And the market really is taking the cue from some positive sentiments across international markets. We did see Asian markets were firmer this morning. Market participants really just assessing a mixed bag of economic data this morning, but also taking the cue from a firmer close on Wall Street as investors just come to terms with different economic drivers in that region, some positive numbers also supporting sentiment. So we are seeing some positivity supporting, underpinning the market rather. And we are seeing, when we look at the indicators, the rand is trading firmer so far at 17.72 against the dollar, 20 rand at 25 against the euro, and 24 rand 5 cents against the pound. So positive screens there. But also on the key commodity side, we are seeing mostly mixed, mostly positive, but it is a mixed bag. Gold is a bit softer. There really a pullback in some of that safe haven demand as some of the risk sort of has abated across market participants. Gold is, as I mentioned, is a bit weaker, down about 1.6% so far at $3,318 an ounce, while Brent crude has firmed quite meaningfully at $66.68 dollars a barrel rather.
Thank you very much, Sitimbele Bopela, FNB investment analyst.
Update at noon, midday to 1 p.m.
Making our way towards 1 o'clock, 27 minutes away from 1. Let's take some voice notes. Let's see what you have to say about some of the topics that we've covered today.
A very good afternoon to you, John. John, last week I've learned that vulnerable persons with disabilities in Northwest Mafeking, they've handed their memorandum raising their concern with regards to being excluded in the government departments. I just wanted to get an update. How far are we in terms of getting a response? I just wanted to know, John Khariga, thank you so much, my brother. Kazamola Koza Pretoria Social. We know that our government doesn't take us serious. Including the people who are living with albinism. Those guys, they don't take us serious. Can you please give us an update? Thank you, John Khariga.
I wish to apologize for being a racist. I'll try and mend my ways, but I can tell you, it's not a conscious...
Good afternoon, Rajon. It's Fred the Trucker here in Western Cape. Rajon, I just want to say, Mike from Newlands shouldn't come on radio and start to lie to us and say Dunlop is closing because of BEE laws and all those kind of things. And also, even unions shouldn't come and lie to us. Business is there to make money. So if they are not making money, and this is not the first Dunlop to close here, because there's too much competition. There's Hong Kong tires coming in, and people are preferring cheaper tires. So Dunlop is closing because they are not making any money.
Now the government has the power to expropriate your property without compensation, or the buildings, or tell you who you are going to employ in your business. Maybe Goodyear have just given up the ghost with our lousy economy, have just decided it's not worth staying here. But hey, that's 950 jobs being lost. But don't worry, the COSATU is going to demand to see Goodyear's books. They have the cheek to say they want to look at Goodyear's books to see whether Goodyear should leave or not. And if Goodyear doesn't show them the books, what they're going to do? Go on strike? Oh, Mike Newlands.
I see Elon Musk's father, Errol, is a great admirer and a friend of Putin, the Russian president. And he has been invited to a conference they're going to hold in a few months' time, in which he has been invited as a speaker. It's got something to do with Russia's space program in 2050. Yeah, amazing that he's a friend of Putin. And we know that Elon has often criticized Russia and Putin. Errol, Durban.
Those are some of the voice notes. Voice notes remain open, and you can also give us a call as well. All those phone lines are always open. More than welcome to get hold of us, and we love your feedback, so give us a shout. We got an interview with Pharrell Hamfajee coming up in a moment. This is about these transport costs, these contracts that have gone out, almost R1 billion in transport contracts to connected family members. We'll talk about that in just a second.
What counts in life is not the mere fact that we have lived. It is what difference we have made in the lives of others. These words by Nelson Mandela inspire us at Habitat for Humanity. With the help of various partners, including volunteers, corporates, communities, and government, we have built homes with more than 650 vulnerable families in South Africa, giving them hope and new beginnings. You too can make a difference. Partner today with habitat.org.za and join us in building a South Africa where everybody has an adequate place to live in. Together, we can change lives. This is an SABC-supported initiative.
After school snacks, a bag of chips or maybe some biscuits, instant noodles for lunch. Ultra-processed products such as these may be high in sugar, salt, or saturated fat. Having too much of these products could lead to diabetes, hypertension, and heart disease. Our health is in danger. We have the right to know what's in our food. Demand front of package warning labels now. Sign the petition on healer.org. HEALA.org.
Don Gerika on SAFM.
23 minutes to 1 o'clock. The city of Johannesburg is reportedly defending the awarding of almost R1 billion in massive transport contracts to politically connected families. That's despite concerns from the Auditor General. To get more on this, we're joined on the line by Daily Maverick Associate Editor Pharrell Hafaji. Pharrell, thank you very much for joining us. Good afternoon. Talk us about these tenders. What are they for?
Hi, John. So the thing is that we don't know exactly. I've been trying to prize it out of the city since that Auditor General report came out, and it seems like they are linked to the BRT Rea Vaya system, the extension of which is running about 7 or 8 years late. So if you put the two together, you can understand why they're running so late. It's a story that I'm going to have to sit on to find out exactly who the awards were made to and what happened to the money.
Just reading your article, the public transport is in a bit of chaos at the moment with the delays and things that are just falling apart.
Well, I suppose the BRT Rea Vaya is important because it was meant to provide a cheap form of public transport to people in Johannesburg. Obviously, we are very, very well serviced by various taxi associations, but this was meant to make it that much cheaper for people to get in and out of the city with greater ease. And unfortunately, that extension, which goes from the CBD all the way to the sprawling north of our city, has really run late. It's something that I've watched for years and years. Sometimes I drive the route to see if there's any progress. And while there is some progress in parts of it, it's again running late on its latest deadline, which was the end of 2024.
Talk us about the process of uncovering these contracts that are going to these families.
So the Auditor General's report is really a mine of information. And for me, it's something that us as journalists need to, we tend to look at it when it comes out, find the headlines, do the story and move on. But if you read the 200 odd pages, there's detail in there that tells you everything you need to know about the city and about the state of local government. So now what we need to do is perhaps even use a promotion of access to information application to the city to find out exactly what those and other contracts have been. Because it seems to me like Joburg is using a lacuna in the law, which is Section 45, and that one provides that family and associates should be able to get contracts from the city as long as they are declared in the financial statements. And those financial statements, it's not easy for you and I to go and get. So that's something that we now have to do.
Is this something the Auditor General raised then?
She did. And she was highly critical of it. So the city said to me, hey, we can't see the problem because the law says that you can't prevent or ban family members and associates of officials and councillors from getting these mega contracts, but they have to declare. The quid pro quo of that is that we should be able to see, but that's hidden from us. So that's what I'm busy working with now. The Auditor General can't just give it to you. You have to go to the city to get it.
Okay, and it's the optics of it as well. It might very well be legal and above board, but it's just the optics of it and not being able to see it and get the details about it.
I to be honest with you, in an era of state capture, and I don't think we're through it at all. If someone sat and reported the Zondo Commission for years and years. It's still happening. The judge told us it's happening in provinces and at local government level. Surely, I think that's a piece of law that should be amended because it's such an easy gap for skullduggery to take place, in my opinion.
The Metro saying they found no issue and won't conduct an investigation. That also seems... Investigate. If it's fine, then it's fine. If it's not, it's not.
Yeah, I tried to point out to the city, look, the Auditor General doesn't think it's that fine. She said very clearly that it raises issues about integrity, it raises questions of conflict of interest, and it raises questions about the pace of delivery, especially in the metros, which is where half of all South Africans live in the cities or in the metros. And other than Cape Town, all 7 of them got really terrible results. It would be a fail if you were at school. And the city was just adamant that they can't see the problem, they can't investigate, and they can't rescind the contracts either.
Obviously, you're going to keep a close eye on this and release stories. Are the powers that be looking into it in any other way?
Yeah, I've had a call from the MMC for Transport, Kenny Kunene, this morning, trying to explain what he's trying to find out. So I think people have taken notice. Obviously, the DA in the city, which is the opposition, they've also taken the case of this 1 billion rand in contracts to the SIU, and I'll follow up with them as well on whether they're going to be looking at this.
Keep a close eye on that. Thank you very much, Ferial Hafaji, Daily Maverick Associate Editor. We did attempt to get a comment from the city of Johannesburg, but we weren't successful.
Update at noon, midday to 1 p.m.
Just about 1:15. The process of filling 3 vacant IEC commissioner positions is well underway. The deadline for submissions was Friday, the 6th of June. Chief Justice Mandisa Maya will convene a panel to review the nominations and recommend candidates to the President for appointment. The President appoints members of the Commission for a term of 7 years, with one of the vacant positions having to be filled by a judge of the High Court. This process comes at a crucial time ahead of the local government elections next year. SABC News political reporter Busi Bopela takes us through the process.
A number of people have submitted their applications, hoping they will be selected to fill 3 crucial vacant IEC commissioner positions. An IEC commissioner has the important task of administering the country's elections, as well as directing operations at the Electoral Commission. Rachel Fisher, who is the Parliamentary Engagement and Research Manager at the Organisation for Undoing Tax Abuse, OUTA, explains more.
The focus really gets turned onto the IEC commissioners once elections occur. So whether these are the national and provincial elections or the local government elections that is taking place next year. So they need to manage the national, provincial and municipal elections and to make sure that these elections are free and fair. They must declare the results. They must even look into the education and awareness activities to inform the public before such elections. They even need to manage political party funding, the register, the declarations, etc.
Fisher elaborates on what is required of a commissioner of the Electoral Commission and what prerequisites does one need to have if they so desire to be appointed a commissioner of such a crucial Chapter 9 institution.
This person must be impartial, they must be independent and act with integrity. That is the topmost that is required. We do want people that do not have any political affiliations or at least have held high political office. And this then is also a requirement for the IEC commissioners themselves. Preferably, we want to see people with experience. So whether this be in terms of tertiary or postgraduate qualifications, it's always an added advantage. And then they must have a demonstrable understanding of the framework of constitutional democracy in South Africa, as well as with the election sector itself, and then understand a broad representation of the South African community.
Fisher says those who will fill the positions will have their work cut out for them, adding that they will have to navigate a difficult terrain, often catching stray bullets from political parties.
This person and the 3 commissioners then must be able to understand the context, deal with the consequences and fallout, learn the lessons from the NPE last year, but then adequately prepare for the local government elections. Now, luckily, the local government elections were not as impacted with the Electoral Amendment Act, but we have so many more role players that will be entering this across the board from political parties. It's positive then in the sense of how do we then reframe the narrative within the GNU, and how do we adequately prepare? They've seen the challenges, and now they must start addressing those.
The Office of the Chief Justice will now convene a panel to review the nominations and shortlist candidates for interviews. Following that, the panel will interview shortlisted candidates and recommend a candidate to the National Assembly for consideration. Lawmakers will then consider the report and recommend candidates to the President for appointment. The President will then make a decision and appoint the 3 commissioners.
Busi Popela reporting there, SABC News political reporter.
Update at noon, midday to 1 p.m.
13 minutes to 1 o'clock. After 78 years of manufacturing tyres in Kariga, Nelson Mandela Bay in the Eastern Cape, the Goodyear factory is reported to be closing. The tyre manufacturing company is said to be restructuring, which includes the closure of the company's manufacturing plant in the Eastern Cape. It's alleged that Section 189A retrenchment notices have already been served, a process which will be facilitated by the Commission for Conciliation, Mediation and Arbitration. For more on this, we're joined on the line by Alan Mokoki, CEO of the South African Chamber of Commerce and Industry, who's concerned about these developments. Alan, thank you very much for joining us. Good afternoon. What's your initial reaction to the news?
Good afternoon to you and your listeners. Well, I think that we're shocked and obviously we're not happy to see this type of development. As you know, Goodyear in the area has been there for probably 7 to 8 years. So it's almost 8 decades, and they've been a very strong economic supporter of the local economy. And as you know, the value chain and a whole range of people who depend on that business existing. I mean, I'm talking taxi people who have to transport. Many of those 900 people who have to come to work and go back home all the time, and all the other supporting businesses around that. So every time you see this type of development, it does not necessarily bode well for South Africa and for investment.
Social media was alight with the reasons this might be happening, from far left to far right. What does the Chamber of Commerce and Industry see the contributing factor to be?
Well, we can't know the reasons until the people who know the reasons express them factually. Reasons are factual. The company directors would come up with very clear reasons, but I haven't heard them say much about what is the reason behind it. So saying anything at this particular point in time would be sheer speculation. But look, it's a business that is global. They've had these kinds of problems before, and I think that globally they've tried to do something. In Italy, they were working together with workers. Workers agreed, we'll take a pay cut, we're not going to charge you for overtime, we'll work an extra hour. And I think that that's what we can always urge people to try and do, to come together, the unions and all the other key stakeholders, the Department of Trade and Industry, the local government as well as the provincial government, come together to figure a way of what are the issues that can lead us to resolving the difficulties